Hey, is this thing on? Lance, Nick, ready? Can you hear me? Welcome to the Live Free and Hunt podcast. All right, I'm going to hit record and we can get going here. Already, Live Free and Hunt podcast, episode 25, 26? I don't know what episode it is.
Sure.
But we're going to go. We have Neil, Adam, and Kev on tonight, and I think we're just going to talk about whitetails. We're going to pick Neil's brain about all things whitetail. But I want to go into... Adam, last time you were on, we talked about you starting to shoot a recurve or a traditional bow, and I think you were making your own arrows or quivers, your own fletching with turkey feathers.
Yeah.
And I think last time you were on, you said that you wanted to shoot a deer with the recurve, and that was your goal for the year. I want to go into Kev and Neil. Your buck Neil's buck that he shot this year, and Kevin was filming. We saw that video.
Yep.
And other than that, I think that we're just gonna talk whitetails and maybe a little bit of turkey.
I don't know about that. So
We'll throw Neil out, and then we'll get into the birds.
I may take a nap on
Maybe
that
some
one.
saddles too.
Yeah, maybe some saddles too.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Adam, if you want to go into the deer that you shot, I know you can start at the very beginning because, like I said, the last podcast we were talking about
Sure.
recurves.
Yeah, actually, it was a longbow that I
Was it a
that I was
longbow?
hunting
Yeah.
with. Yep. But yeah, I shot it all winter and finally got good enough. I feel like I could kill something at 20 yards or so. But I was hunting a piece up in, I won't say the town, so people don't see my truck and they start following me around, you know. But I was actually hunting a pretty good buck. I was out hunting in the morning. It was opening day. And I'd hunted till almost 10 o'clock and got a call for a track with the dog. So I left my hang-on stand there and went out and tracked this buck. We didn't find it. The guy didn't kill it or whatever. But by the time I got back to hunt in the afternoon, I didn't have my hang-on stand for the spot, so I was down to my climber, which kind of sucked because I had my tree picked out in the hemlock.
Yeah.
And we know you can't get up in the hemlock with a climber. So I
Too
poked
many
around.
branches.
It was, you know.
Yeah.
But I had a buck that was coming in as early as 4:30 in the afternoon, a real big, heavy 8-point.
Mm-hmm.
And I had enough photos of him that I thought, boy, I got a good chance of killing him, but I got to do it in the first couple of weeks because he's probably going to disappear.
Yeah.
So I get in there and check a couple cameras, and sure enough, everything looks good. But I had to choose a tree about 70, 80 yards away maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about 6:15. I heard some crunching behind me, and I look over my left shoulder, and sure enough, there's that big old buck. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I'm trying to get up and turned around. That big deer got to about 17 yards, and I'm looking through branches at him without a shot. And he had to take about 2, maybe 3 steps, and I would have had a 15-yard shot at him. But he hung up right before he got there, and I'm sitting there staring at him going, come on. But he smelled something, gave a little blow, jumped back to about maybe 30 yards, and stood there. Now, if I had a compound bow, I'd have sent one right through him.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there with my longbow going, what the hell am I doing with this out here, you know? This biggest deer I've ever been around, and I don't feel comfortable launching an arrow.
Yeah.
And he just walked off. I thought, well, that really sucked, you know. But a little while later, some more deer had filtered in, and I had 2 does out in front of me. Sun's going down, and before the sun got down, I got a shot off on a nice doe. She was a little over 100 pounds, but
Nice.
I wasn't even sure if I hit her, which was weird. Usually, I don't know what it was. I think maybe the excitement of finally releasing an to out of a longbow for the first time at a deer. But I got down, and I couldn't find my arrow. I thought, well, shit, it should be in the ground. I'm 20 feet in a tree. And with a little while longer, I looked some more, found blood. I pulled out. Came back the next morning and found her with the dog.
Oh, awesome.
I figured I ain't going to blow it. I'm going to let her do it. But she was maybe 70, 80 yards away.
How close was that shot?
Probably 17, 18 yards.
Yeah.
And I shoot 45 pounds out of a longbow. Everyone shoots compound bows. I shoot a lot faster and a lot more heavy of a weight. So you wonder, is 45 pounds enough?
Right.
Now, we were spring turkey hunting this year with Kevin. I won't mention the broadhead's name or nothing like that because I don't want to do that. But I shot a mechanical at a turkey and bounced it off the side of the bird.
Oof.
Yeah, oof. We called him in out of private property across the field, up onto a stone wall. I'm hiding behind a big old dead pine. And that bird jumps down off and comes over to the decoy, and I drew back and sent it, and it bounced off the bird.
No shit.
It limped away. Kevin's filming the whole thing. He's looking at me like, did I just, yeah.
You fucking bounced it. Did I just fucking bounce an arrow off a
So
turkey?
now I'm deer hunting with the same bow,
Yeah.
but I went to a 2-blade razor sharp
Yeah.
Zwicky Eskimo broadhead, totally different setup.
Mm-hmm.
But to shorten this story up too, the doe I shot must have just turned towards me, quartering to me a little bit. I shot her through the third rib, cut that rib in half, went through her entire body. Arrow came out her ass on the other side
Wow.
with a 45-pound long
40
bow.
pound. Yes.
Yeah.
No shit.
So it put to rest all my worries about using that bow and that setup for shooting a deer.
Yeah.
But
That must have been, you must have been fucking psyched.
I was almost crying, to be
Yeah.
honest.
That's a big accomplishment.
It was. I was hoping I could do it. You know, a lot of people
Yeah.
hunt a long time and never shoot one at all,
Yeah.
especially with traditional gear. So when I came up, when we were tracking with the dog, we got halfway to the deer and found half my arrow laying on the ground. As soon as I saw that, I knew I had a dead deer. There was
Right.
no question.
Yeah.
And then when we saw her piled up, it was pretty emotional. I just sat there, and it was me and my dog in the woods,
Right.
and this doe, and
It actually happened.
it happened.
Yeah.
And I felt pretty lucky, and fortunate to happen so quick. So.
How long had you been shooting a longbow previously?
I picked that one up about 2 years ago,
yeah.
and I shot it for several months and put it away and said, I'm never going to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
This is just too hard. And then I finally put my foot down myself and shot it all winter.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched it. There's a video. If you get on the traditional archery pages on Facebook, everyone will tell you, watch the video of the push. It's a video about traditional archery, really goes through it and gives you techniques and ways to shoot the bow. And I went from a split finger to 3 under,
Yep.
gap shooting, and my shooting tightened up overnight. And before I know it, 30 yards, I can hit a 4-inch circle all day now.
Really?
Yeah. So, but it's holding it together and getting release. It's not like, the compounds, everything's a given. You hit a dead stop on your draw. You got sights and everything on. So having your form proper is a lot more critical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when the deer's showing up, especially on your first kill with a bow like that, your nerves and everything's going wild. So
That's just me with a regular gun.
yeah. But getting that release, but luckily I think I've shot a pile of deer over the years, so
Yeah.
that part of it
Right.
helps me control it. But
Good
it was
deal.
quite a moment, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. What's your plans? Are you're still gonna turkey hunt with it?
Yep, absolutely.
Good deal.
We'll get it done again.
We'll get it done with the right broadhead set.
Yeah. Those wing feathers can get hard, huh?
Yeah, I don't know what it was.
Are you
Yeah,
shooting
and-
a squirrel tip at it? One of those blunt tips with,
No.
with the broads?
No, I think what it is you need a cut on contact. The mechanical broadheads, the way I thought it might have happened is the quills of that wing feather were going one way, and maybe the broadhead, when they opened up, slap cut perpendicular to those quills. So
Yeah.
as they came up, it hit like a springboard and must have bounced off.
Yeah.
So I think a cut on contact. And I can sharpen those things razor sharp. I can shave with the darn thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything better than a 2-blade broadhead out there, because the entire force of that bow is cutting 2 razor blades cutting through whatever you're cutting.
Yeah.
And there's a video online where a guy takes a piece of rawhide and puts an arrow on a scale and starts pushing on different broadheads to see how much force it takes to cut through that piece of rawhide. And when he's taking mechanicals, some of them he's pushing so hard, he's afraid he's going to slip and cut himself, so he stops. And then he takes that 2-blade Zwicky Eskimo razor sharp blade and touches it, doesn't even register, it just slices through. So that was a big eye-opener,
Yeah.
too, where you kind of go, all right. Because when you're shooting that lower poundage, you got to kind of stack the odds in your favor in a different way. So
Right.
I think that's the way to do it.
Good deal. Kevin, go through your season. We'll start there.
Oh boy, my season was unreal. On a personal level,
Yeah.
It's hard to think about it now, just from where I've come from, just 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Season started off.
Did you find I didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but you found like a target buck that you wanted to shoot and then like sent it?
Kind of.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an adjustment that I've made the last few years. Being more mobile in my hunting style.
Yeah.
I think in the last 3-4 years has grown my deer sightings greatly. I probably mentioned in the first podcast, but the first 10, 15 years of my hunting career, I just find a tree in a good area, put a hang on stand there, and I'd sit it every single day.
Yeah.
Just thinking, all right, there's a deer's going to come by here eventually, and I'm going to be here when it does. So it took in the last handful of years meeting Adam and talking with other people, talking with Neil. Just what I've learned from these guys over the last handful of years is just you got to go find the deer. Like, you can't wait for the deer to come to you. And I would go seasons before without seeing deer. This past season, 2020, I saw 51 deer while hunting.
What?
I mean, from when I used to be happy about seeing one.
Yeah,
it was just
I hear
crazy
ya.
to me.
For sure.
So that's been a big change in the last couple of years for me. So this year, in the last couple of years, I've started finding big deer and targeting the big deer, but I'm not so worried about shooting that deer. What I figured is if I'm going to target the biggest deer, oldest deer, most mature deer that I can, and that deer is going to lead me to other deer. Because I'm not at the point where I'm really picky about what I shoot yet.
Yeah. No.
I went into this year.
I gotcha.
I went into this year saying I'm going to pass on spikes.
Yeah.
That was my goal, was to pass spikes. I passed my first buck ever. It was a spike or a 3-point. And so this past year, first time I ever passed a buck. So that was just one of that progression. But way I've thought about it is the bigger, older deer are acting differently, where they're going to lead me to other deer. If they're the hardest deer to find in the woods, I'm going to find the deer that aren't so hard to find in the woods, I guess you could say it. So I've grown my knowledge, I guess you could say. My experiences a lot the last few years. So I opened up opening day, same night as Adam, shot that doe. I sat a spot and saw 4 deer that night, 2 bucks and 2 does. They came out to an apple tree 100 yards away from me. Watched them for a little bit and they disappeared before dark, but the bucks kind of sparred and tickled antlers a little bit in the field and bumped the does around a little bit. So it was just a really cool night to be out there for the first night of the year and stuff. And then to be getting messages from Adam, right after he shot that doe. So it was a good night overall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's
go.
Exactly. I mean, it was just a great way to start the year.
He was ready to come get that doe that night, by the way.
I was.
Like,
Absolutely.
Let me know. I'll be right there.
Yeah.
I'm going to let it set and
Yeah.
we'll get it in the morning.
So that was opening day. And then just a handful of days later, Neil had messaged me saying, "Hey, you interested in coming over? I got a spot picked out to where, I've got some bucks coming in." So, I mean, when Neil messaged me asking me if I can come with him, it's pretty much drop what I can do and beg the wife and get there as soon as I can type of situation. So I was lucky enough to get with Neil, team up with Neil, and get out for an early season morning hunt where he was able to shoot that nice big 8-point. So that was pretty cool because that was the first or second weekend of the season.
That was the first weekend of the season.
First weekend, first Saturday.
Yep.
So we were only a couple of days into the season there.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, September 19th.
You shot that thing
Saturday
early.
morning.
Yeah.
We had that freezing cold morning.
Yeah. It was like
All right.
29 degrees out when I left my house that morning.
It took forever to get the video out.
Who's doing that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you had all hunting season getting in the way.
Yeah, we got that video out recently, so that was pretty cool to be able to get that one out there.
My favorite part of that video is like at the beginning, your ozone thing going.
Yeah, little
And
closet.
you had like gloves on. I was like, oh shit. I think Kevin and Neil are getting a little bit too close. He had the rubber gloves on.
No, it's
no.
Neil is super. I mean, Neil's very detail oriented. I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of his biggest attributes is just the attention to detail that he puts into things.
Yeah.
So when I'm going with Neil and going out with Neil, I kind of up my game as much as I can because I don't want to be the reason that something goes wrong. Neil's targeting these deer for a reason, and he's got a system. He's got a way of doing things. So like I said, I'm going to go through every measure I can to be a part of that system when I get to go with them.
So before we get into the hunt very much, Neil, how much do you how important to you is scent control and how far do you go with that? Is it like you as far as Englehart, you don't eat onions or don't drink coffee, or is it?
I don't necessarily go quite that far, but yeah, it's something that, over the years when I was trying to target mature bucks. I wanted to try to do everything I could to stack the odds in my favor. So that was one of the things that scent control is obviously a big part of the game. So I started learning as much as I could about trying to figure out ways to eliminate as much scent. And now it's gotten to the point where I feel like I don't need to worry about necessarily as much as what I used to. But also a lot of what I do is now just become part of the repertoire. So it's, just like tying your sneakers, brushing your teeth. You don't think about doing that stuff anymore. You just wake up and do it.
How particular are you? Everybody does the wind, obviously, and I think thermals have come into the conversation in the last couple of years. Like, that's important. But other than playing the wind and the thermals, like, how far do you go with? Are you pumping gas? Are you eating snacks?
Neil goes far
go?
enough that he doesn't worry about the wind.
I don't. Like, I usually don't worry about the wind. I mean,
You don't worry about the wind?
No,
Okay.
I'll try to take it into consideration. I'll try to, I'll think about it. I mean, 'cause that's just one of the factors, whether you said thermals or the wind. But for the most part, it's not going to really factor into where I sit or where I don't. I mean, I may try to set up around the spot that I want to hunt with the wind, obviously playing a factor in the hunt, but whether it's my wind that could potentially ruin the hunt or if it's the wind that's going to work to the buck's favor, because depending on if they're leaving bedding, if they're going to a scrape or a food source, there's all the different factors of what the wind could be doing.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the scent control thing, I think it's just, for me, it's become part of the kind of regular system where, whether it's the whole year or especially like a month or two before the season, it's like the washing machine's getting switched over to, scent free. It's like,
buy a new washing machine. Babe, get a new washing machine.
Yeah. And luckily, it's like my girlfriend now, it's like we haven't, ever since even during hunting season, I don't think I even did a load of laundry at her house, but she switched over, to unscented laundry detergent, and it's still just, that's still what's being run at her house. I have a roommate at my house, and so he's always been good that every season he, puts all of his, scented laundry detergent away.
You give him a washboard and be like, yeah, go up back. I ain't doing my laundry anymore.
No, but I mean,
galvanized tub and a scraper. Yeah, good luck.
So it's like, washing the clothes. It's like, not just the loads that obviously you do, but any load, prior to the season and during the season, it's unscented. Then from there, ozone is something that, especially to treat your clothes, they get hung up in a closet. I don't necessarily go as far as Kevin did with the rubber gloves, but I appreciate that he puts the extra effort in, before we're going to go out and hunt. But yeah, so it's like, I'll make sure though I am washing my hands. It's like, so I'm taking, scent-free soap and I'm scrubbing the crap out of them. It's like before I'm taking those clothes out, taking them out of the dryer, putting them in the tote, bringing them downstairs, putting them in the ozone closet, running, ozone to treat the clothes, turning them inside and out, then putting them in another tote. That's where they're going to sit until it's time to hunt with them. Jesus. I'll drive to the hunting spot in just, flip-flops, shorts, t-shirt, get to the hunting spot, then I'm changing into my hunting clothes at the hunting spot. So then when I get back out of the woods, hunting clothes are coming off, boots are coming off. I'm putting the scent eliminating, boot powder that's in the boots to absorb any moisture, which then will cause bacteria and cause scent in your boots. Then when they get back home, it's like the gear's being hung up in the ozone closet, or I'm going to rewash it before I wear it again. But it's just, to me, it's like that's just become kind of part of just the system, it's like that I do. So it's really not that much work because
Sounds like a lot of work for me. I haven't hunted like that yet. So
I mean, but again, you get home, right? You hang up your hunting jacket, on a rack somewhere. So I'm just putting it in a closet and turning a little dial on an ozone generator.
Are you messing around with any, like, I know years ago, Scent Killer or what was the other brand? Scent Away, Dead Downwind or whatever.
I used to use those a shit ton, but I don't use them at all anymore.
No. Okay, yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'll use it just as I'll have a bottle in my truck. So if I don't have a way to wash my hands or something like that, I'll spray down maybe my hat with it. It's like, or I'll spray my hands down before I go in the woods, but that's about it.
When you say going into like a new year, you don't have a buck, you shot your buck that you wanted to shoot and you're looking for another target buck, you go in the woods and set cameras. So you go, middle of summer, set some cameras out and you find a target buck that you think that you want to shoot. How often will you go in the woods and like how particular are you on going in there and without messing up that area?
In the past I've been, probably what I'd say like overly, protective of when I go into those areas if it's a buck that I'm going to target. But pretty much now it's, I have kind of targets that I've had from previous years that I've, they've made the list or whatever.
Yeah.
But then I'm always looking for new ones. So now it's like in the woods that I've hunted previously, I don't need to go there as much because I kind of already know what's going to be happening. I'll already have cameras there or spots that I plan on putting cameras. So I'll be able to figure out what's happening in those woods through those cameras. And then I'm always checking out new places. I mean, that's one thing that, when I talk to, Kevin quite a bit and my other buddies about, it's like, okay, well, how am I going to, be successful? It's all about percentages. If you just have one buck that you're after, it's not always going to work out. If you have potentially 10 bucks or 10 or 20 different hunting spots, one of those spots is going to be hot. Like one of those spots is going to have a good buck. It's going to have daylight activity. So you're going to just stack the odds in your favor by having more areas and more places to hunt.
Continue on with, so start at the scent free, the gloves and the jacket. So on that day, I
was going to say actually, so before that, to rewind, how this spot even came about to be, right?
Yeah.
So this spot was an area that obviously when we had, the COVID stuff, starting to happen last year, I started to do a ton of scouting. I wasn't working at the time. And so this happened to be one area that I went into shed hunt and I happened to find 3 sheds. So I said, all right, this is a spot.
Before you go any further, I called you like right around this time, or I think it was probably summer. Like I literally texted you and said, hey, I need to talk to you. Can you text me or call me? And you called me, and I was like, I have this issue where there should be like a big buck here, and I think that I know where it is, but it's not appearing. And we talked about scrapes and we talked about whatever. In that conversation, I think we talked about like where you had some deer and you had cameras. Does this take place in that same piece of woods?
No, this was probably this was a different piece of woods.
Okay.
So
yeah,
that area that you're talking about, that's kind of part of what leads in the story too, because that area, things had changed.
yeah.
So what I kind of planned in going into the season as a spot that I thought I'd figured out early season, just everything kind of got turned upside down. And so it really led me to kind of that point of the story, right? You got to have a backup plan to a backup plan to a backup plan. So because of doing all the scouting, during the shutdown when I wasn't working and finding this area, finding sheds, I'd come across a scrape that looked like it was really good. This spot in particular, historically, has been super heavily hunted. So I didn't really have high expectations going into this area to even have this be a spot that I'd want to hunt. Found an awesome looking scrape and said, hey, you know what, let me go ahead and, come back closer to the season, put a camera on it and see what happens. So I happened to get a lot of activity at that spot on that scrape. And there was, as it got closer to the season, quite a few bucks that were showing up. And there was 2 bucks in particular that, were big enough that they were going to be, kind of, I guess, added to the list. They weren't at the top of the list, but they were bucks that I would definitely, want to target if they started showing up more and more during daylight and going into the season. And the activity was a little weird. It was late morning activity, so it was around, between 10 and noon, I think is when most of the activity was.
Yeah, the pictures you would send me, Jeremy, were like 9:30 to 11 usually, the pictures you would send me.
So,
and you're talking August, early September. Yeah.
So, well, the reason why I don't think it's weird, the kind of more I thought about it, because I always like to ask why, right? Like, why is something happening? Like, what's influencing that behavior? Well, if it's a spot that historically has been tons of hunting pressure, that's when all the guys are leaving the woods. So, if you're a mature buck, and you're going to go ahead and start roaming around, just once all the hunters have left, it's now you have free reign of the woods. So that was just kind of my theory on why it was happening late morning, which I wasn't really complaining about. So it looked like a spot that could be good. And then with other things changing at my other location, I decided to, I think it was, when did the season kick off? Was it Tuesday?
Tuesday.
So yeah, so then it would have been, I'm guessing probably Thursday night. I ended up going to this spot, just did a hang and hunt near the scrape because I wanted to see where the deer could have been coming from. I had a good idea what was going on, but I wanted to just kind of observe. So I found a tree that was, close enough to the scrape that I, could actually, get a shot. And so I climbed up the tree and I happened to have a doe and a fawn that night. They came, in the area. I watched what they did. They kind of walked behind the scrape and then got dark. I pulled out of the spot. And then, of course, with a cold front coming that weekend, that's when, Kevin and I had spoke, and I said, hey, it's going to be freezing cold Saturday morning. I hadn't really wanted to do early morning hunts anymore, like early in the season, because usually it's better in the afternoons or evenings.
Right.
But I said the conditions have lined up perfect. This place is showing on the cameras. There's activity in the mornings. Plus, it's going to be 30 degrees in the morning. It's going to be below freezing, which you never have in September. So,
what made you besides everybody says the cold front. What made you think that was going to be like the best time besides just the cold front?
I mean, I'd had consistent buck activity on cameras anyways for the most part. So between that and then just there's always, mature buck movement like early in the season. When it gets cold, I've seen, you're talking September, going into October. If there's anything that usually drops below 45 or 40 degrees or even colder,
Deer move.
those big bucks are going to be on their feet, especially. It's like those mature bucks. That's when you're going to get pictures. I mean, it's just happened, over the last, 7 or 8 years of running so many cameras. Those big bucks are going to be on their feet and cruising around when it gets, 40 degrees in September and October. So it may not be where you want them, but they're going to be up moving around. They're
Right.
going to be on one of the cameras I have somewhere. So with that, knowing that this spot with the activity that it had, I just had really, really high hopes that it was going to happen. Didn't know it was going to particularly happen as early as it did, that morning, but it worked out. So contacted, Kevin, about meeting up and just said, hey, if you can get to my house early enough, let's see if we can pull this off. He's always asked to say, hey, if you think, if there's going to be an opportunity to capture, it's like a hunt on film that you think you're going to be successul, which doesn't always work out as planned. But
As long as that easy. Right?
yeah. But we've had, pretty good luck in the couple times we've tried to put a plan together. So, so of course, then, that morning, actually we spoke the night before, about, meeting there at what? I think it was 3.
I got to your house at 4:30, I think. And then, because we had gotten to the woods at 5. Yeah, because we had parked, gotten there a little before 5, I think we had parked and started heading in. And then sunrise was 6:40 something,
Yeah, it's
something
not,
right around
it's
there.
not early yet. Because
Yeah.
This is early September.
Yep.
Then-
So I mean, we didn't have anything in the tree, so we had to do a full setup.
Yeah.
Sticks, stands, everything. We had a decent hike in there. So we got in there pretty early, and we had just started settling in. It was all open pines where we were at. So Neil had his set up real high in the tree. Neil was sitting in a hang on. He's probably 25 feet.
And we're in a naked pine.
Yeah,
there's
naked
no
pine.
cover.
There's
Naked
nothing.
Pine. We're out in, we're sticking
Yeah.
out like a sore thumb.
So
Yeah.
this is a good thing to point out is like a lot of people, like when you're looking for deer sign and it's early September, that's not necessarily acorn material. You're not hunting a food source necessarily.
We could be hunting white oaks then, yeah.
What I'm saying is you're literally sitting in pines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
we were sitting over
yeah.
a scrape. We were
Yeah,
sitting.
A
we
deer
were-
hunter would be like,
we were-
why
we were
are you
hunting
sitting
a
in
scrape.
pines?
here?
Yeah, we were hunting a scrape where he was getting all the pictures at.
Yeah.
we were set up to shoot the scrape that he was getting the pictures
Yeah.
at.
Well, and actually on that note that you had said, I actually went there with a buddy. We went there a couple weeks ago to go shed hunting. And so, I told him, look, I'm like, this is a spot, where, I shot that buck that the video was of. And he goes, all right, hold on. I can't understand this. He goes, why the hell would you have chose this spot to hunt? He goes, I'm not seeing what you're seeing here. He goes, I would have left. He goes, I wouldn't even kept shed hunting, let alone, he's like, I wouldn't have come back to actually hunt this.
Yeah.
And I said, it just so happened that I found was a community scrape. There was, multiple branches that was, you can see that they were licking branches. The ends of them were kind of chewed up. There was multiple scrapes on the ground there. So when you see more than one scrape in the ground, there was shit in the scrape. So I'm like, this is, a heavily trafficked area.
Yeah.
Put a camera on it, and the camera just said, hey, sit here, It
I
wasn't
want
rocket-
to get.
wasn't rocket
I
science.
definitely. I want to get into scrapes and like how you set your cameras up and how you base your hunts off scrapes.
I want a camera that tells me
After.
where to sit.
Yeah.
It's the ones that are
I
showing you
want to
buck
get.
pictures.
I
yeah.
want to get. I want to get into scrapes later. So you're sitting in pines.
Yep.
Yep.
Tall pine. So
Yeah.
Neil's about 25 feet up. And then I went with my saddle.
This is a pre-hung stand. You said?
No, no.
We
So,
did
yeah.
all this that morning
Okay.
in the
we-
dark.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went in literally. Like we get there, it's like, walk up this hill. It's like I said, that's the tree, that we're going to be sitting in. And I said, Kevin, hang out back here. So you're going to hang out, speaking of scent, hang out a little way from the tree. I want you, to kind of hang out in this area. I'm going to walk over. I'll hang the sticks. I'll get my hang on set up. And then, then you'll come over once we get up in the tree that he's going to go above me and he's going to do his saddle setup, above me in the tree and get the camera all set up. So we go through the complete setup, which naturally takes longer than what you anticipate. So at this point, it's, starting to kind of get light out, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was just starting to get light out when I was getting up in the tree. Neil, like I said, Neil's at 25 feet. I'm up above him, and Neil's 12 feet tall. So I think my platform was like 32 feet or something like that. And
Shit.
Yeah,
I'm
shaking.
I'm not a heights person. I do not like heights. So it was something. Yeah, it was something. So it was just starting to get light as we're settling in. We're still moving, getting camera set up, getting layers put on because, like I said, it was 29 degrees, 30 degrees that morning. So we carried in our layers. So now we're trying to get dressed, get camera set up, get bows hung up, and then it just started raining turkeys all around us. And as
blowing down.
As a turkey hunter, I'm like, there's. How are we doing? How do we get this set up without busting all these turkeys?
Yeah.
And here in my mind, not being a turkey hunter, I'm like, this is awesome. They're covering all our noise. Like,
Which was cool. It was ideal, but like you go in the woods during turkey season, you walk under a bird, and that bird busts out of the roost, no problem.
Or just won't say shit and then
correct.
fly off the wrong way.
Yep. So we're still getting our gear going, getting settled in. Boom! It starts raining turkeys all around us, and I think the video shows some of that a little bit. And
which actually, looking back on, I kind of anticipated because the night before I had seen pictures, that had gotten sent to me of turkeys coming up to roost. So it's like I saw them coming up, the hill, and I knew they were going to fly off that hill and roost. Because they had done that.
In Pines,
Yeah, they had done that on Thursday night when I was there. They did the same thing. I had that whole flock of freaking 20 turkeys come walking up, and I'm like, well, great, that kind of ruins the evening hunt. But then that night they did the same thing. They had come up right by where we were. They'd flown up into the trees.
Yeah.
So when it started happening to me, it's just like, all right, this is kind of just part of the plan. It's awesome because they're going to cover our sound. But
yeah, and it was a real crisp morning. They said it was so cold, so there was a real crunch to everything. So the turkeys were making a racket walking around, and I got the video camera going, recording them, kind of getting settled in, and Neil just got comfortable down below. And I videotaped those turkeys walking off, and they walked off right off my right-hand shoulder, which me facing the tree, Neil facing away the tree, would have been Neil's left-hand shoulder. So they disappear. I cut the camera off and just kind of settle in, and it was 5 minutes later, you start hearing footsteps going in that same direction. I just kind of look over. I'm like, well, turkeys must be coming back this way, and just kind of peek over and waiting for the turkeys to come strolling on by because it sounds like they're coming right for us. And
Wilson the turkey.
All of a sudden, I see Brown moving right towards us, right through some tree lists. So I'm like, oh, that's not turkey. So I whispered down, and I'm like, Neil, deer.
And I'm like, all right, yeah, well,
Neil,
whatever, Kevin.
Neil's
like,
okay. Neil's texting on his phone or whatever. Just letting
TikToking.
well, in my mind, yeah. Well, in my mind too, I'm like, well, these bucks don't show up till late morning, so I'm like, all right, do whatever. It's deer, but not the ones we're after.
So I look back up, look over, and they're still coming. I mean, they're right off my right hand shoulder, coming right at us, and I can just kind of see Brown coming through the leaves and the limbs and stuff. And I see a second body, and I look down, and Neil's still texting. I'm like, no, Neil. Deer, they're coming, and like
I'm still TikToking.
Yeah. Neil's still texting or whatever. I look back up and then
Yada 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 yada.
I look up and that's when I kind of saw antler coming through a couple of the branches real quick, and I'm like, oh, we got buck here. And I look down and Neil kind of started looking up again real quick. But what's really cool, what I really appreciate going with Neil's got his target deer, but whenever he invites me out, he always tells me to bring my bow. I'm like, normally as a camera guy, like all I'm there for is shoot video. And Neil's like, nope, bring your bow. If the buck that I'm after doesn't show up, you have free reins to pretty much whatever you want. So in the meantime, I'm starting to get camera rolling, and now I'm grabbing my bow thinking, all right, well, there's only one or two deer that Neil's shooting in this piece, so odds are it's not going to be it. So I'm grabbing the bow, and as in the video, you can see this buck kind of pops up. I mean, at 20 yards, and as he comes,
before you can really see what's happening, you can kind of see a deer coming.
Yeah.
But then when you finally get to see what it is, it's probably 25 yards off, maybe
just
30.
because of the limbs and stuff, you couldn't tell what deer it was until he pops out.
So everybody's ready now at this point, right? Like,
I'm not ready really at all.
No?
Like, so no, at this point, I'm thinking
Sounds great.
I literally look up right after getting on TikTok, and I look up and just like, shit. I'm like, this looks like it's a shooter.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck. I'm not anticipating, this early. I'm like, what's going on? And so now in my mind, I'm trying to evaluate, like, okay, which buck is this? Like, I mean, because I don't want to, shoot the wrong buck, and I'm looking. And he's coming in head on, like straight at. So as I'm looking down on him, I'm just seeing like the hoops of his main beams. I can't even see tines because they blend right in with his main beam. So I'm just, when I'm looking down on it, I'm just seeing this big, U shape. And I'm thinking, I mean, it looks like it's a, pretty good sized beam. So it's like, it looks like it has all the makeup beam wise of being a shooter. but I can't really tell. And I'm like, all right, he's coming head on, and he's probably like 10, 15 yards below the scrape. So the scrape is kind of still, it's like more off to my left, kind of up on the hill, and he's coming a little bit lower below the scrape, walking along the side of the hill, and he's coming straight at us. And so now at this point, I can't draw, I can't do anything because he's coming head on. And then all of a sudden, at this point, he just kind of freezes, right?
Yeah, as soon as he clears the limbs and you can see him good, he just freezes, and you see him look right up at us.
Yeah,
right in the video, you can see it.
And he just does eyes bug out in his head. It's like he just completely.
Is that the deer that blew?
No.
Does it?
There was no deer nobody blew at us that morning, I don't think.
No, so he just
I
locks
thought
up.
there was a deer that blew in that video.
No.
No?
No. No, so he just kind of looks up at us, and he goes to spook a little bit, and he kind of gets an antler tied up in a branch real quick, and he kind of ducks underneath that one. He just kind of trots a little bit away.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm waiting to get a chance to draw, right? And so, I mean, when he's head on, he sees us. It's like natural instinct would be to draw, and now he's going to bolt. But I'm like, if I do, I know he's going to really bolt. So at this point, when he kind of gets his antler, I don't really realize until I watch the video later on, but his antler gets stuck in that branch, and I just see him kind of hesitate all weird and then at that point in my mind, I'm thinking, well, all right, he's not going to just bolt. He's not just going to take off. It's a weird hesitation. So then he takes a couple of bounds, and as he takes those kind of just kind of lumbering fast bound kind of walk things, I'm like, he's going to stop at about 25 yards. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm a single pin shooter, but it's set on 20 yards because the scrape wasn't far away. So I'm like, all right, he's still within range. I don't have to worry about moving any pins. It's still going to be perfect. And as long as he stops, he's not looking. So I just immediately drew. And at that point, the branches, it's that you can see in the video because Kevin's up above me.
Right.
So it looks like there's not perfect windows, but from where I'm sitting down below, there's perfect windows. There's nothing obstructing. So I just put the pin on him and let it rip. I mean, it's just I mean, it was draw to pins there, shoot. I mean, it was all probably in second half, 2 seconds. Just draw, boom, and yeah.
Yeah.
When I first saw the video, I was like, oh, he's busted. The deer looked literally right. It looked like it looked,
looked
right
like
at the
yeah.
camera. Oh, shit. And it looked like he was going to fucking...
Nope, he just kind of
hightail
took
off.
2 or 3 steps and just was
that
slowly
it.
walking. Yeah. Yeah, so
was
Neil shot
sweet.
that deer. He took off down the hill, and then when he was coming in, there was a deer or two behind him. So as that deer takes off, I try and film that, but can't really get it. And I look back up, and then one of the other deers behind him was a smaller buck.
Well, and which I want to kind of rewind just a little bit too. It's I got to give Kevin, super credit because for him, the angle he was at, to be able to, when that buck took off and made those bounds going down that hill, to stay on him in that situation, because that was your off angle, right?
Yeah, so he ended up at my 6 o'clock pretty much. When I videotaped that one, I couldn't even see the camera. It was pointing directly behind me. So
That deer came from...
He came from my right hand side, my 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right down. So I had the camera on my right hand side. It was pointed straight at him off my right hand shoulder. So when he spooked behind me. So I had to just turn the camera, and with the screen on the left hand side of the camera, it is now on the opposite. So I just kind of turned it, and when I turned it, the video head kind of caught my jacket real quick. So there's a little shake real quick in the camera. That's just me getting it off stuck. Get it off my jacket real quick. I just kind of turned it, and I'm like, I think it's in that direction.
Throwing no look passes.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Oh, you want him?
Yep.
Well, of course, I know none of this, right? At this point, I'm just thinking, okay, it's is it a shooter? It's okay, boom, he sees us, he's taking off, he stops, and I got to shoot, just pull and draw. So it's at this point, I have no idea what's going on up with Kevin up there. I'm thinking, okay, this is easy for him. He's just up there, filming, checking it out. But then when you actually, hear about it and see the video afterwards, what he had to go through to get that shot was phenomenal. It's to be able to pull that off. So
Yeah.
That's crazy.
yeah. And so then back to what you were saying. It's
So that deer takes off crashing down the hill. I look up, and the other buck that was behind him is standing there at 35 yards, just kind of wandering around going, what the heck just happened? So I spin the camera back around, and that deer kind of takes a couple hops, and he's almost directly out in front of me on the opposite side of the tree, almost behind the scrape that we are sitting over now. So I just kind of turn the camera, get it pointing in that direction. So the camera's on the right-hand side of the tree. With me in the saddle, I swung around to the left side of the tree to shoot. So I still wasn't worried about the camera. I couldn't see the camera again. Just zoomed it out so it was a wide view. And that deer came out, and I judged him at 35 yards. And there's just a couple little leaves and limbs in the way, and he stepped out, just cleared those a little bit, and I kind of settled the pin on him, and I let that one go. I think that the arrow, just dove right underneath him, just a hair.
Well, and of course, I'm sitting down below him, and we had talked, as Kevin had said, I'd said, hey, bring your bow. It's like there's an opportunity at a buck, but we'd kind of talked about a couple of bucks in particular, right? And so if there was other bucks outside of that, we had said, hey, it's like you may want to pass, let some smaller ones go. It's like, but there's a couple of nicer bucks. But everything changes. All bets are off when I've just shot a buck, right? Now at this point, it's like, who cares what steps out? Like we get a chance to double up.
If we can double, if we can double out of the same tree. In New Hampshire.
Yeah. So that's what I'm thinking. But like it's also going through my head because I'm waiting. I'm like, all right, like that deer's there. Is he going to shoot? And there's a little bit of time that's going by, and I'm like thinking, well, maybe he's not going to shoot because maybe he thinks this is a deer that I don't want him to shoot right now. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, fucking let it go, Kevin. Like shoot him. Like, and so just as I start to go and look up, that's when I either hear or see like the movement about to start to happen. So I just quickly look down, and I see that arrow take off and go. And I mean, kind of same thing. I thought it like dove either just underneath his armpit or just in front of him. Like it looked like, I mean, it was for a clean miss, luckily, but and then of course that deer bounded just off, still not knowing what the hell was going on. It's like it's still all confused.
Yes, that deer walked off, and there ended up being a second buck. So when I shoot at that one in the video, if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, like so you'll see the green knock go and that deer take off running.
Nick, get the video up.
What a lot of people haven't noticed is on the right-hand side of the screen, there's actually a second deer that takes off running. That was on the opposite side that I never saw until I reviewed
deer total. So second deer after the one that I shot, but third deer total.
Yep. So that was the third deer that had been there.
Well, third buck.
Third
buck. Yep.
Yeah.
And he was probably he was probably the giant.
Yeah. So I've reviewed the footage a lot at my house, and there's one point to where the camera's just pointing that direction, and I can kind of see the two deer moving like way off in the distance. And Neil and I are talking back and forth. I'm like, wait, there's two bucks still out there. And I've looked back at the footage, and there's a split second to where a deer turns his head, and it looks like an absolute giant.
No.
Well, because the deer that I shot, he was running with another buck that.
A big 10.
They're pretty much always together. Yeah. So it would make sense that the other buck.
So all I see is the head turn real quick and see like one side of the beam, and it's a long ways off in the camera, but you can I'm like, no, that's a big deer right there. So now you second guess yourself. What if we just sat down and been quiet? Like what would have happened and stuff? But it was super awesome morning either way.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool.
Nick's gonna bring the video up so we can watch it, but in the meantime, Neil, setting up, going in, and I know you hunt over scrapes or you try to find communal scrapes, and put cameras on that. Like, how important is it to find scrapes and put cameras over it? And like, is that's mainly how you find what kind of deer you're looking for?
I mean, yeah, that's the main way I go about it. But I mean, if I go into a spot and there's a bunch of signpost rubs, or if I'm seeing a massive track somewhere, it's like, or even if someone says, hey, it's like I saw this giant buck, it's like, I mean, I'll stop and I'll talk to people. If I've been scouting down in Massachusetts quite a bit now, trying to find areas down there, and I'm not shy to go up and talk to people. It's like if I see it's like somebody out walking, I'll just kind of introduce myself and say, hey, it's like this time of year I'm going shed hunting, and I'll have an antler sitting in my truck, and this is what I'm looking for, and they think that's cool, and I'm trying to kind of build a relationship and a rapport, and then I'm like, by the way,
NHBack40, Nick.
And then
Sorry.
And then of course then I'm like, oh, by the way, like I like to target bucks with racks like this.
Ones.
Yeah, it's like not this size that I'm showing you, but do you know of any in this area that you've seen crossing the roads that are just absolutely freakishly large? And every once in a while, somebody will say, yeah, it's like I've seen one like that off so-and-so road, or in behind this building or this house or whatever. So then at that point, if there's not a scrape that's there, if like I'm not seeing certain signs, it could be breaks in rock walls, it could be just anything that looks like it's going to be a pinch point, I'll put a camera there, but then I'll also just make a mock scrape at that point. If there's not one to target, I'm going to make one. So hopefully at some point, like there's a spot just recently, I've gone all through this piece of woods, and I've seen I know because I've actually seen bucks in this area driving around that are there that are pretty good size, but I've never found a scrape anywhere. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to put a scrape there. So, and I've had a bunch of activity on the camera now over the last month.
You're doing mock scrapes, or you're trying to find, like, what do you think is better in your opinion? Like, if you go into a piece of woods and you see there's rut activity there, and like historically rut activity, Are you making if you can't find like a communal scrape, are you making a mock scrape there and trying to attract deer to that area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that probably, I don't know, like 2 times in the last like 3 weeks probably. I've gone into places and I've been like, this is the perfect spot for a scrape. Like deer come through naturally all the time, but there's no scrape here. And I haven't found one anywhere around here. So I'm like, all right, well, guess what? I'm putting in a scrape here.
Mm-hmm. When you make a scrape, you're taking a branch, scraping it, scraping the landscape. Are you looking for, it has to be over like a licking branch? Like, I'm assuming.
So yeah, I mean, you need a licking branch that's there. I mean, obviously dig up the ground, and so with a licking branch that's there, so I try to find. So this is where it kind of gets complicated because you want to find a spot that you're going to be able to hunt that deer. You don't want to just make a scrape and it's going to be a shitty spot to put a stand up, or it's going to be the wrong direction. So where you're accessing those woods, now it's like you have to walk through the area to go through or beyond the scrape to set up a stand. It's like, so you have to kind of factor all these things into the equation. And so then when I make that mock scrape, a licking branch that's there, if it's not the perfect branch, you can kind of, I mean, Kevin and I did this recently in a spot where it's like you can make a branch better as long as there's a branch there. Where there was, one that we had recently, it was too high. And so what we did is I took like a dead branch, so it's like a log that's kind of saturated because it's dead, it's a little bit rotten, so it's waterlogged, and I zip tied it to the branch to bring that branch down to now perfect deer like scrape level, where it was, I mean, I could barely reach up and grab this branch, so it's now bringing it down to level. Or in another spot recently, there was, I mean, it wasn't even like a hemlock branch, it's just like kind of like, I don't even know, like an immature like beech tree or some other, type of tree that like is just gnarly wood that you couldn't snap the branch off. Like you'd have to just twist and twist on it, and it's very fibrous. So there's one of those that overhung, and so I took another dead tree, leaned it up against that tree, so it bent it down, and now at this point it's bending down this, cluster like chandelier of branches where that's just irresistible for a buck that walks by. He can just stick his head in this thing and the branch is friggin' all over the place. And so at that point, I'm either breaking off the ends of the branches, or I'm taking like a little knife and just kind of exposing the bark at the end. And I'm kind of scuffing it up a little bit, so that way it's like there's that exposed bark that can hold the scent from the bucks on that licking branch.
We videoed all this, so hopefully we get a reason this fall to put it all together.
Yeah.
You got something coming down the pipeline?
I mean, hopefully we have a reason to use it one day, but we did take a video of it to kind of hopefully build a storyline down the road.
Yeah, I mean, like I do this stuff like all the time. It's like when I'm in the woods, but Kevin's like, Neil, you got to start, just capturing some of this video, because if we go in and kill one of these deer in this area, like this just is all
no story.
That's part of the storyline, yeah.
Right.
So
that's what's hard about filming. If you want to film something, like I talk about this all the time. It's like that, like. It's November 2nd. It's 7:21. It's 7:21. It's 28 degrees out. If you don't have that in a video,
I'm kind of running.
The video is like, it's junk. There's nothing there. There's no story.
So I've got 2 more hunts on video this year. My muzzleloader buck I videotaped, and then my Massachusetts Archie buck I videotaped. So I've been trying to put my muzzleloader buck, New Hampshire muzzleloader buck, together for 3 or 4 weeks now. And
I'm being very patient.
It's tough because it's a typical New Hampshire hunt to where you don't see anything for 3 or 4 days. And then so every day going into that, I'm doing morning interviews in the dark saying this is the day, this is what's going on, this is why we're here. And then I think it was the 4th day I sat this spot. That morning I said I purposely didn't do a morning interview. I'm like, nope, if I don't do one, I'm going to see something, I'm going to shoot something. So I'm like, the one day where you don't do what you're supposed to do is the day that's going to happen, which is
that's how it usually works out.
Pretty much exactly what happened. So I have no video until 20 seconds before I shoot this deer for that day. So I've been trying to figure out how to incorporate a little timeline sequence of
pull the hunt together for the
first 2 or 3 days before. Yeah. So like the problem is the first 2 days saw nothing except for a couple wood ducks. So it's there's nothing to really put together there except for the morning interview kind of. 3rd day I had a couple does come by, so like you could use something a little bit there. And then the next day is the buck. So it's
and then not only that too,
it's tough to put that storyline together.
Of course,
especially
when there's not a lot of encounters.
Correct. Yeah, and self-filming, and when I'm with Neil, like filming's on the mind. It's not doing all the work, so
Well,
you're
and
able
then,
to
too,
slow everything down and get the extra footage.
Yeah, well, then after you're successful in a hunt, it's like at that point you want to celebrate, you want to have fun. So to go get all this extra footage just to have stuff for a video, it's like you kind of lose ambition. It's not priority at that point necessarily. So it's always good to try to get it before if you can.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm battling, trying to put that storyline together.
So
Still.
when you're doing a self-filming hunt, and are you running a saddle setup? What's your setup for doing your self-film?
Yeah, so I run saddles and hang-ons, all
Yep.
depending on the setup. So usually early season, all through archery season, I'm usually in a saddle, moving around. Just all sticks, full setups each and every day, pretty much 90% of the time. I've got a couple hang-on stands I have set up. The buck that I shot my muzzleloader was in a hang-on stand. It's a spot that I had picked out on the map, went and scouted it, and it's a little pinch point. I'm like, all right, this is a rut pinch point kind of funnel stand type situation. Like the bucks.
I was just gonna say, there's a difference between, like, when you were talking about, like, earlier in your hunting career, is like you go out and put a hang on stand, right? And
Yeah.
then you're gonna sit there all over the hunting season and maybe see a couple deer if
Yeah.
you're lucky. There's a difference between there's a rut stand, right? This is what I figured out. There's a rut stand where there's zero activity any other time of hunting season, but
Yeah.
when it comes to the rut, that stand is hot all the time, year
Yeah.
after year after year.
Yep. So this one, this is the first year I've been in there, hung some cameras in there, and I really found this spot because there's a certain deer that I had started getting pictures of early in the 2019 season. Just a big bodied 8-point. He's probably over 200 pounds dressed, 140-inch 8-point mainframe 8-point. Just a big giant bodied deer. And all of that year, I've been texting with Neil saying, "Hey, like, I can't figure this deer out. Like, where is he?" Neil's just like, "You gotta find his scrapes. You gotta just start expanding, start trying to find him." And I had come close a couple of times. I was within 200 yards of this deer twice while in the stand, just from getting pictures while I'm in the stand 200 yards away. So last summer, I just kind of started expanding the search even more. All right, it's like start stretching out, looking further away. And it was early October. I checked a camera, and there was an extremely large antlered deer. I mean, probably far the largest antlered deer I've gotten on camera. And
What'd you do?
I started moving all my cameras towards this deer. I mean, honestly.
Little pocket pool, huh?
Yep.
Go
So
all in on that one.
I had put a cell camera on a pinch point in the swamp over a beaver dam, and I had gotten this large antlered deer. I named him Dylan. And there's a number of people that know about this deer in this area. It's kind of what I've kind of started hearing through the grapevine. His picture has shown up on Facebook before.
Doesn't that just make want to gag?
Yep. Yep. So yes, I mean, I know of at least 6 to 8 people that have pictures of this deer.
No shit.
And now you gotta imagine how many people they've shown and told about. So
Yeah.
he's there's a lot of people after him. So I found a pinch point swamp, got a picture of him going over this beaver dam in the middle of the night one night. I'm like, all right, so like if there's deer moving through these areas, they gotta, because there's a couple cliffs in the area, real steep rock walls. I'm like, they're not going to be going up over these things. For them to get around this swamp, they have to go 1.5 miles to the north to get around this swamp. So like,
Yeah.
this is the first point for them to get across. So I put a camera there, and I put a hang-on stand. All right, this is going to be a gun stand, rut stand. And I went into it, approached it, saying, all right, I'm sitting my entire vacation. I take a vacation.
I was gonna say,
Off of work.
You took a week off this year.
Yep. So I usually take mine. So the last 2 days of muzzleloader season and the first 3 days of rifle season. So rifle always starts on a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's worked out the last 2 years. I shot my muzzleloader buck in 2019, the day before rifle. This one just happened to be 2 days before rifle, that Monday. So I only hunt I work Monday through Thursday. I work 4 10-hour shifts. So my vacation started on Friday. I sat this stand Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Didn't see nothing Friday, nothing Saturday. Sundays had a couple does come by. Monday is when I went back in there. And then I had this buck come through there 9:20 in the morning probably that day. I ended up shooting him at 65 yards. And he's a nice 8-point, 160 pounds, what he dressed out at. And he was the biggest deer I've ever shot in my life. Wasn't the number one target deer that I was after. But like I mentioned to begin, like I'm targeting big deer, but I'm not dead set on shooting these deer.
Gets you excited. What?
Exactly.
Shoot
Yeah.
it,
I'm just learning more. Yeah. This deer stepped as soon as I saw him. There was no question.
Yeah.
It was pull up.
This one's going.
Yeah. So that video is actually pretty neat. The video of the shot's pretty neat because the deer's crossing a little brook at the end of the swamp. So like you can see his reflection in the water with the way the sun's hitting him and stuff. So it's pretty neat. When I shoot him, there's actually a splash from the bullet hitting the water 15 yards behind him. So like it looks in the video, it looks like I missed him 3 feet over his back.
That's pretty cool.
So when I'm recording, I'm talking to the camera, I'm like, play the footage back. I'm like, man, I think I see the bullet hit this deer perfectly. I go, but that splash is like 3 feet over his back. So I either missed him by a mile, but I also think I saw him go down. Yeah. And I'm like, so I thought I saw this deer go down, but now I'm replaying the footage going, did I miss this deer by like 3 feet? Like that is, and I ended up figuring out how to really slow the footage down. And I was actually able to see the impact of the bullet. And I'm like, oh, I know that deer's dead right there now. Yeah.
It's awesome footage.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's not very long footage. Like I said, it's hard to put this storyline together to put it out there. But yeah, I'll get it out there in the next couple weeks.
That's the hardest part, man. Is just making it. If you're gonna do like semi live, if you want to try to do like videos and put them out, like make a video and then get it out the next week, or make it I'll make it a whole story. Like if you had a buck that you'd follow. It's doing the same thing over and over and over. Same thing with turkey season. Okay, it's 5 o'clock and now we're here, and after a while you get sick of saying it. But if you don't say it, then it's hard to
which is exactly what happened that day. Yeah. And I knew it was going to happen. Like I purposely didn't do a morning interview.
You're not doing
I told myself I'm not doing a morning interview today because it'll be the day that it happens. Yeah. You know.
Sometimes it's good luck. Maybe I'll do that.
Yep. It's legit exactly what happened. So that was pretty cool. So I ended up shooting that deer. So that was my second buck of the season. And going into 2020, I'd only shot 2 bucks in my life.
Yeah. So you just doubled down.
Yep. And then so I shot that deer Monday, took Tuesday to kind of clean up, reorganize gear, rest, because I'm still on vacation from work. My vacation just started. Yeah. Wednesday was the opener of New Hampshire rifle season. I didn't have a tag anymore. I'm archery only. I said, you know what, screw this. I'm getting away from all the gun pressure, and I'm going to go check Massachusetts out. So I went and checked out Massachusetts Wednesday morning. Had scouted my way in to a spot that I had checked out during turkey season. When I hunted during turkey season, found a bunch of old rut sign from the season before. So I hadn't been in there all summer, hadn't scouted it, hadn't ran cameras. So I just said, hey, I'm going to go check this spot out because there was buck sign in there in the spring. Hunted it for a couple hours.
You dropping pins during turkey season?
Yep. Oh, yeah. I had marked some signpost rubs and stuff like that. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring some rattle antlers and a grunt tube, and I'm just going to go sit on the ground and have some fun. And Champ had actually messaged me. I got a message like 3 o'clock in the morning saying, he's like, hey, you hunting today? I'm like, yeah, I'll be in Massachusetts. He's like, I really effed up my elbow or something yesterday. He goes, if I shoot something today, you mind coming and giving me a hand? I'm like, nope. Let me know. I'll bail out of the woods. Yeah. I know my buddies, I'll bail out of the woods any time of day. Go help my buddies dragging deer out. I love dragging deer out with my friends. So hunted for 2 or 3 hours, and in the dark, when I walked in, I started running into scrapes in the dark 100 yards from the truck. So I had scouted once the light came up, did some rattling sequences, did a little bit of walking, found a ton of buck sign. Champa went and shot a deer that morning, shot a nice buck that morning, so I bailed out of there, went and helped him out. Thursday morning, I went back in there. So Wednesday, after I helped Champa out, I went back with a hang-on stand, and there was a hub of 4 or 5 skidder trails, all had been old logging skidder trails, and they all came to a central hub. They all led to one little area, probably a landing or something. Yeah. And there was just scrapes all up every single one of these skidder trails, going all the way up them, and they all came back down to this one hub, and there's a big scrape in this hub. So I picked out a hemlock tree.
That sounds like Aliens, like when they make one of those corn things.
It's exactly what it almost looked like.
This is the main scrape.
Yep, it looked like that. So I hung a hang-on stand 30 yards over this thing. I mean, you know what? All the signs right here. It's only 150 yards from the truck. I've never been in Massachusetts before. I don't know what to expect in here. Go. No cameras, no bucks, don't know what's in the area. So Went and hunted that. Hung that stand Wednesday afternoon, hunted Thursday morning, hunted Friday morning. It had rained Friday, I think. So I climbed down early and just did some extended scouting, went deeper into the woods. And the further deeper I got, the less buck sign there was. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep on hanging out there by the truck. And then Saturday morning, I had a small little 6-point come walking in the 30 yards and shot him with my bow.
Smoked them.
Yeah, so we got that one on video as well. So that's pretty neat.
You guys had a good year. I feel like I sucked.
Like I said, this is by far
The best year.
best year of my life as far as hunting
That's
goes.
awesome.
So, yeah, that was my year in a nutshell.
What are you running for? I'll go through like all three of you guys. Like
Yep.
for stand wise, are you still running? You said you got to hang on. You're running a saddle. You're running what else?
So I have a couple of heavier hang-on stands that I kind of keep as permanent stands. They're just bigger platforms, more comfortable. And then
But is that like your hunting over sign that is like traditionally just good deer sign?
Yep. So I got one on that
activity?
rut pinch point. So that one's there. The other one I never even put out because I got it last year. It's hanging in my shed right now. Never even used it. Excuse me. So I'm running, for my saddle setup, I'm running a tethered Phantom saddle. I have modified Hawk Helium sticks. So the original Hawk Helium sticks were a 3-step stick. Last year they came out with a 2-step stick. The ones that I have were modified from a 3-step to a 2-step before they came out with the 2-step sticks. So they were cut down. So they're a shorter stick. So I run a four sticks of Hawk Heliums with the Phantom saddle, the Predator platform. And that's kind of my early season mobile setup. When Neil and I go out to the Berkshires way out west in western Massachusetts, I'll bring my saddle setup out there too. Just a little more mobile setup. I've got my heavy duty hang-on stands. And then I've got a mobile hang-on stand setup as well. So that's what I used in Massachusetts. It's an old Muddy Vantage point, I think.
Yeah.
And they actually have brackets that they had for it. So you can put brackets up in the tree. And you just
bring your stand.
Yep, bring your stand, you drop that in there. So I've got a couple of those brackets. So I'm able to set up some of those brackets in a couple of different locations. And I can just bring my stand in there. So it's a pretty easy setup there.
Yeah.
It's not too bad.
Adam, what are you running? You have an XOP stand?
Yeah, XOP Vanish, and I run it with Lone Wolf sticks.
I
love it.
I was gonna actually message you about that because I was like looking them online and I'm like, I don't know what I still generally, if it's not bow season, I'm on the ground hunting. I'm either still hunting or sitting against a tree or something. But just this year I was like, I need to get with it. What am I doing here? But the XOPs I was looking at, and
Yep.
do you enjoy
Yeah,
that?
nice and light. They're small. Lone Wolf sticks. They pack in and out good and set up quick.
Yeah.
I do a rope mod on them, so I don't have to strap anything to them with AM steel. Just wrap it around, a couple twists around that button,
Yeah.
cinch it off, go up to the next one. Doesn't take long. Takes longer to set up a camera than it does
No more
the stand.
ratchet straps. No more.
Nope, unless you get to the stand. I bought the piece that you fix to the tree, so when I'm up there, I just strap that to it, and then that bracket, the XOP drops right into
Yeah.
it. That makes it quick. So that's the way to go. Or I run a Lone Wolf climber. I love to sit and climb too.
Yeah.
If I can run a climber, I'll run the climber before the sticks every time because I can go up and down faster, quicker, and easier
Yeah.
in a climber.
It's just finding that tree. That's my issue. I still run a
Yeah.
climber. I have hang-ons, but generally if I'm gonna bow hunt, then I'm
Yeah.
taking a climber in. But you find a spot, and you're like, all right, well, that's got a crotch in the tree. You can't go that far, or you got a sticker coming
Yeah.
off. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah, so if you know where you're going already with a climber, that works pretty good.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I'll run 2 hang-ons with fixed ladder sticks
Yeah.
in spots that I know are pretty common every year.
Right.
Kind of like go-to, like my backup plan to my backup plan. You run around, but I know, hey, I can always go back down
Right.
here and set one up. Sometimes they're not always in the best spots. I like leaving those out for observation stands.
Yeah.
We got one that we set up a couple years ago that we'd seen a few bucks. Every time I go out in that stand, I see a buck. And
Sounds like a good spot.
It is a good spot. I had that big 10-pointer on there
Can I
opening
sleep
day
over?
last year. He came to about 60 yards. This year I had maybe a 4 or 5-pointer come in, but with the longbow, you're not shooting too far.
Yeah.
We went back and set up on him with Kevin. He came in and set up behind me to film, and I was in front of him, and we had a little buck come in behind him, and I heard something coming in, but I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a squirrel, and Kevin's looking at me. He heard it. And I'm looking past him going, I guess it was nothing, but the buck must have been right behind his tree. Next time I heard it, I knew it was a deer, but it was too late. So I'm looking, I got my recurve hanging on my side, and I look back, and the buck is between, because we're in separate trees. We're not in the same tree. The buck had already passed his tree and realized something was up.
Yeah.
By the time I looked over, I was like, shit, you
I'm
got to be
busted,
kidding me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had heard the same thing. When he heard the footsteps, I had heard them, but they were directly behind me. So I didn't really want to turn because we were out in an old cut, and there were just single trees out, and we had found 2 trees that have a little bit of cover on them, and we just both kind of stuck ourselves in what little cover we could find because they were just way out in the wide open. And when I heard the footsteps behind me, it was the same thing. Like I thought it might have been deer footsteps coming in, but it was the opposite direction from where Adam thought the deer would be coming from. And I saw Adam turn to look, so like I'm not moving. I'm just sitting still. I'm like gonna let Adam look by me, and he can kind of signal to me what he sees. And
He should have winked and went,
I didn't know it was a deer at this time. I didn't know it was a deer either.
Yeah.
So I'm watching Adam look by me. So I'm reading his face, and he just kind of looks and looks and looks, and he turns back around like nothing of it. And I'm like, well, it must be a porcupine or something else on the ground. And I keep hearing the footsteps getting closer, and I just kind of turn and lift up and peek over my left-hand shoulder. And there was a branch that came off my left, and I just kind of peek over the top of it, and I could see it was a 3 or 4 point, and he was at like 15 yards coming.
Split you guys?
He was coming right for my tree from behind me. And so I was sitting in my saddle this time too, and I was actually sitting with my hip up against the tree, my left hip up against the tree, and he walked on the opposite side of the trunk. So I'm on the right side of the trunk, and he almost brushed the left side of the trunk of the tree. He was right below me.
we're like this, and I'm here, he's there.
Yeah.
Like,
So I videotaped this deer with the camera pointing straight down when he comes out from the other side
sweet.
of the tree. So I actually looking straight down at this deer with the video
he could have
camera.
spit on the deer.
Yeah. So
No shit.
So this deer's right here, and this is when Adam turns around for the second time, going, "All right, something has to be there." When Adam turns around, he kind of looks up at me. I'm like this, pointing straight down with my finger, and he's like, he's got binoculars in his hand, doesn't have the bow in his hand, and that deer probably got my ground scent because he was right below me. So he just kind of, as soon as he got right underneath my feet, he just kind of.
He jumped back, but I don't know. I kind of just made a couple noises at him. He blew at us. I blew right back at him.
Yeah.
He looked back, and I'm sitting there going, whew, whew. I'm like, oh, yeah? Well, whew. And I blew right back.
That works,
let's
yeah.
go.
That
Yeah,
definitely works.
It did. If I'd had a compound bow, I probably could have shot at that deer,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, because he just bounced back probably 30 yards from Adam, 15 yards from me.
Didn't know what the hell's going on.
No,
Yeah.
he knew something wasn't quite right, so he jumped back and he kind of was looking around, and like Adam said, it would have been a 30-yard
Yeah.
shot probably.
I'll take a 30-yard shot this year.
Yeah.
Yep. I won't even think about it because I know I can hit it.
Right.
Yep.
So yeah, he just kind of slowly walked back the way he came afterwards, blowing a little bit. So
That's impressive because I feel like I'm like 40 yards in the woods for me with a compound bow. That's what I'm comfortable with. Shooting a longbow at 30 yards, I can't imagine. Like that's a lot of practice.
That's my point of aim
Yeah.
on there. I don't know if how you shoot your bow,
Yeah.
but when I shoot 3 under, I do a gap in like a fixed crawl. I don't know if you know anything about that,
Mhm.
but when I go 3 under and I'm right up tight to my arrow, that's like my long shot, if you will. And when I draw back and come to anchor and I get fixed,
You know.
the tip of my arrow is now like my aiming point.
Mm-hmm.
And at 30 yards, when I'm tight at 3 under and I put the tip of my arrow where I want to hit it, I hit it. Now, as I start going down, you got 2 options. You can either aim low or you can crawl down your string on your jaw. So now my fingers aren't touching my nock anymore.
You know you're low on it.
Right. So when I'm at 20 yards, I crawl my 3 fingers down to where the top of this first finger is about equal to the fletching of my arrow. So it's about maybe a 1/2-inch crawl. When I draw that back and fix everything and put it in, then I hit on at 20 yards. It's an interesting concept how this guy. Once I started doing that and playing around with that, but you got to play around with your knock height and get everything dialed in. With in your arrow length comes into play because the shorter your arrow, so there's a little bit of playing around. But once you nail it down and you start doing it, and you hit it and you hit it and you hit it, you're like,
I got this.
I got this.
Yeah.
I can do this. So now I get on the other side of the log and the little bit of trees by the road, and I go, okay, at 35 yards, I bet you if I put it on the top of that deer target, I'll hit in the money. I do. It's a little bit of a loft. I'm still not sure how much power I got with a 45-pound bow, but
Yeah.
I'll probably bump up to a 50-pound this year and maybe give myself a little more distance, but it's been...
How do you mess with the poundage on those?
You don't.
Strictly the bow?
You get a
The
different
bow.
bow.
Yeah.
yeah, you got to get a
that
different bow.
sucks.
So I was fortunate. I had a guy down in Mass that follows me who's getting old and arthritis caught up to him. He's been a big traditional hunter, and he gave me 7 traditional bows. Wow. 2 of them match what I already have. So I got a 45-pound Kodiak Magnum in 45 and 1 in 50.
Mm-hmm.
And my longbow I got in 45 and 50. Then I got a few other ones that I could play around with. But I'll probably give them away to someone if they want to hunt. But so now I got a 50-pound bow that matches in a recurve and a longbow to what I'm already shooting at 45 to jump up to 50. So, but when you jump up in poundage, you got to change your whole arrow
Change
setup.
everything up, yeah.
You know, but
Start
it's
all
fun.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, good deal. Neil, what are you running for your setups?
For stands and stuff?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have probably just about friggin' everything. I have 2 summits, a Viper and a Titan. I have a Lone Wolf hand climber. I have Lone Wolf hang-ons, both the Assault and the Alpha. I have the saddle setup. So I have the Predator platform with a tethered Phantom saddle. I don't even know how many pre-hung stands in the woods. I have a whole bunch of other, hang-on stands. I think, counting just at my house right now, probably 8 or 9 hang-on stands that I could just sprinkle out. They're just cheapos. Then from there, I don't know if I'm missing anything.
Did you get a Novix last year too?
I didn't get a Novix stand. I have the Novix stick. So then for sticks, I have the full-size Hawk Heliums. I have the Novix, so if you guys don't know what Novix is, it's basically the company that Lone Wolf is going to.
Yeah.
So Novix, I have their full-size sticks. I have 4 of those. I have the Lone Wolf full-size sticks, and then I have a set of Novix mini sticks. So just the 2-step shorter sticks. Then I also use a lot when I'm backpacking into places. I have the Cranford tree steps, which are essentially they're a fold-up version of like a screw-in tree step, but they just fold up and there's a strap that goes around the tree, and you can just cinch that strap up.
So you're not necessarily impaling the tree.
Not at all, yeah. So they're complete, public ground, legal. You're not screwing into a tree or damaging a tree. So I use those quite often, and even sometimes if I'm going in, if I only want to bring in, 3 sticks, or if I want to use the mini sticks, sometimes I'll stick 2, 3, 4 of those in a backpack. Those also come in handy if you want to just get a camera off the ground a little bit and have it up higher. You can just quickly strap one of those around a tree, step up on it, and get your camera raised up as well. So really, I have all this gear because I never know what the situation's going to be. It's like sometimes when I'm gun hunting, I tend, if I'm going to do a long all-day gun sit, I'll use one of the Summit stands. I don't often do that because now during gun season, I'm trying to track quite a bit and just, find snow and just, hop on a buck track and go.
Right.
But then from there, what Adam was saying, it's like with the hand climber, that Lone Wolf hand climber, you can't friggin' beat it. It's like
It's so light.
Well,
that's what Lance has.
Well, for me, it's not light compared to some of the other stuff that I have, but it's like I have the smaller size, so it's more compact. It is fairly light, especially if you're used to a Summit, and that's what I thought when I first switched to it. But for me, it's just the fact that you don't have to worry about hanging stuff up. If you're going into a spot where there's a tree you're planning on sitting, or if it's not even a tree, it's I won't as much do it in pines because there's always those couple of dead branches that are friggin' in your way. They got to snap off and shit. But if I'm going to go into a spot where I know there's some red oak trees that are mature, you can go way the hell up there before you hit any branches. I'll go in with that hand climber just because it's easy to get in, it's quiet, it's effortless, up and down. So I use that, a decent amount in a spot that I was going.
Hot tip. Don't forget your rope to bring up your bow if you're gonna do the hand climber, because I've done that. And having your bow and hand climbing with your elbows, it sucks.
Well, then on that, I mean, a lot of things that I'll do too is, so yeah, you don't ever want to forget any gear, but especially, a pull-up rope. But a lot of times with a backpack, I'm running like the Badlands backpacks. I have a Super Day pack. Then I forget the name of the other Badlands pack that I have. But a lot of times I'll put the bow like on my backpack when I'm walking in the woods, because I'm not planning on shooting a deer, walking into the woods, or out in the morning. So I'll actually oftentimes strap the bow to the backpack. So in that instance, if I ever did forget, it's like my pull cord, I can just climb the tree with the bow in my backpack and then take it off.
Right.
So it's like there's always little kind of backups too that you can have. But I mean, yeah. So it's really depending on the situation. And so I mean, saddle hunting, and I think just in general, any type of mobile hunting that you can do is really going to enhance just the amount of deer that you're going to see and the amount of options that you have, because you want to go hunt where there's fresh signs. Like you want to try out different areas. So whether it's using it's like a hand climber versus a summit, because that's more mobile. Whether it's using hang on stands and getting proficient with sticks, whether it's saddle hunting, you have more options. And then I would really think it does take practice. I mean, like what Adam was talking about with his longbow, right? It takes a friggin' lot of practice. It's like, if you want to get good and have a system down where you feel confident, and the adventure isn't just setting up your stand and taking it down for the day, that just becomes a small part of the process when you get proficient and good at it. So with the saddle hunting, and I think just in general, to kind of give a plug for what event that Kevin organized. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to mention that real quick.
I mean, we've got an event that we that Tethered, the brand Tethered, that makes all these saddles, or a lot of the saddles.
And they promote saddle hunting in general.
Correct. They promote saddle hunting in general. They just want to promote the sport and the style of the hunting. They've started these teach and train events around the country, just to teach people saddle hunting. So I kind of volunteered to host one here in New Hampshire. So we're going to be hosting a Tethered Teach and Train event at Moore Sporting Goods on April 17th. And basically what they're going to be doing is they're going to be shipping up a crate or a container to me with pretty much some of all their items, whether it's saddles, platforms, sticks, accessory hangers, hooks, you name it. They're going to be pretty much a full lineup of tethered gear that they're providing. And there might even be a couple people from the company flying up for it.
I was going to ask that. Is anybody going to be there from Tether?
Well, so a lot of that is also going to depend on anyone who's listening. If you think you're going to be interested in just having a lot of fun, right? Just hanging out with guys who love to hunt, you want to try saddles, you just want to try different sticks, like whether it's all the sticks, that I just mentioned, or other stuff. It's going to be a time to play with gear, meet people, have a lot of fun, go to more sporting goods. And so the more people that sign up on both, Kevin and I's, Facebook pages, you can go to Tethered. They have an Eventbrite sign up. So they're trying to get a head count. You're essentially getting a ticket or purchasing a ticket, but it's free. So they want to get a head count. They'll ship up more gear the more people that are coming. It's a free lunch for everybody. And yeah, they could send people up. If we have hundreds of people that sign up that want to be there that day, and it's a big enough event, yeah, I mean, it's
they'll invest on people flying up to come up here. We haven't ironed out all those details as far as who from Tether will be coming up, or if anybody from Tether will be coming up.
Not that matters. Just
correct. But no, basically, Neil and I are going to have all of our gear there to show off, like not show off, but just to use like examples of how we approach our systems, what we carry, what our options are, what options are from other brands. And Tethered even promotes that. We want other saddle hunters in the area, other guys that are saddle hunting already. Bring your gear over. If you got saddles from other brands and manufacturers, bring those. That way other people can see what the other options are that are out there. You got different style sticks, different manufacturer sticks and stuff like that, different platforms. We want to get a good group of mobile style deer hunters together, just to kind of compare notes and compare styles, just to have a good day of hanging out, talking deer hunting, and just give an opportunity for people to learn about saddle hunting at the same time.
Right.
So it's just it's a really cool event that Tethered started doing last year, that they're willing to invest in this. There's nothing guaranteed to them. There will be some items there for sale that you can buy on site. They'll do
stimmy check.
Yeah, there'll be
stimmy check, baby.
Spend it.
There's typically discounts on prices and stuff.
Yeah.
There's giveaways, stuff like that. Probably just might be cheap swag gear. It might be some of their top of the line products. I don't know those details.
Yeah.
Maybe when we get closer to the event, I might know a little bit more. But they're planning a number of these at the moment, so I don't.
It'll be fun though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I signed up for it. We're all going. I signed you up.
I signed myself up.
Oh,
Yeah. So yeah,
Well,
look, the main
we
part
got
of
an
it-
extra guy.
Yeah, main thing is we just want to get people together and talk hunting, and More Sporting Goods is a great store that it's local to me and Adam. We go down there. We know Jim and Randy and Tom and everybody that runs the stores down there, and they're great, super nice people and always willing to help you out. So we want to kind of give them an opportunity to get some show and some face
Yeah,
out of this
that'd be
as
sweet,
well.
yeah.
So. And they've got the property to do it too. We got some trees and stuff that we can climb and check out and hang from, and should be a good day.
It's gonna be a great day.
Absolutely.
Always a good day at Morse's.
Oh yeah.
Looking forward to it.
And fingers crossed on the weather, but I mean, who cares, right? I mean,
Rain or
we
shine.
brave the elements anyways.
Absolutely.
I'm ready. I'm excited. I talked to Nick over there on the couch. He's like, I'm gonna buy a saddle. I said, no, I'm gonna buy a saddle. No, I'm gonna buy a saddle. Everybody's gonna buy a saddle. We never bought a saddle. I
And
couldn't
that's the
couldn't
thing.
buy the trigger.
I mean, like
It's
I had
like-
thought the same thing, and then all of a sudden, it's like I
have
think
a
the first
tree
time,
stand.
I tried. I don't think it was Dave Cyril's. Like, he went and it's like said, hey, you can try out my saddle. It's like Kevin came over with his afterwards, and so once you get in, when you figure out if it's for you or if it's not for you, it's
Yeah.
like even Champa, right? It's like he had originally said, he's like, fuck no, like I'm not gonna get one of these. I can't do this, but he's buying one this year. It's like,
Yeah.
he just bought one.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you go through, wanting to use different gear for different reasons. And so the more that you can go ahead, and try this stuff and play around with it,
Yeah.
you're going to figure out what works for, whatever situation you need, because there's so many options that are out there. But
I'm gonna get a saddle. I think I have no problem with heights, and I've used to climb telephone poles for a living, so
But
I don't think
it's
that's an
it's
issue.
tough
You're all
because
set.
Yeah,
these aren't box store items. You can't just go down to Cabela's
No, exactly.
or Bass
Yes.
Pro or Dick's or Walmart
Go check 'em
and
out.
check them out.
Right,
Correct.
yeah.
You can't get your hands on these things
Yeah.
in person, especially here in New England.
yeah.
Maybe somewhere in the Midwestern states, you might be able to team up and do some more stuff.
Which
with
is bullshit
more people,
because
but-
they have less woods. They have like more fields and less woods. We have all the woods.
Yeah.
Right.
Or all the trees.
So no, this is just a cool event. I mean, we're hoping to get just a bunch of people down there from all over. I mean, Morris's is kind of centrally located. You can get there from Vermont. It's maybe a decent ride from Maine, but
Yeah.
if it's every once in a while, it's just a day of deer hunting. Make an
Yeah.
event of it with some of your buddies.
Yeah, if anyone's thinking about getting into saddle hunting, this is probably the best opportunity
To come
that
check.
they're going to have to come check them out, try them out,
If
really
it's- if
run
it's-
them,
if it's
and
for
find
you
out
or
right
not.
and get
Right.
a lot of information about them at the
Yeah.
same time. So
I'm even hoping to possibly convince some people that have some of the new Lone Wolf custom gear to get some of their hang-on stands down there. Just as a comparison, the Lone Wolf custom gear is a branch off of the regular Lone Wolf, but they're making hang-on stands that are 4 or 5 pounds apparently.
I know, I know some people that are using those with saddles.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Does-
we just want to get a general sense of all this different gear that's out there that you can't buy in box stores. You can't get your hands on. I want to see it all. I want to try it all.
Right. Well,
Even,
this is
even,
my
even being a host.
my question is like, so you might know. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm sure everybody does. But like, Lone Wolf and Lone Wolf custom gear. There's something like they switch brands. There's
No,
something.
so it's basically
it's not the same company
So
anymore.
no, the DeQuistos. Essentially, you have Andre. It's like DeQuisto. He ended up starting initially. It's like the designs for Lone Wolf. It's like so he built essentially like the Lone Wolf. It's like stand, and then so he ended up leaving the company and he retained the rights to the Lone Wolf name. That was the one thing when he left the company. So now Lone Wolf is owned by someone else. And so he said, well, I like that name so much, I want to retain that name. So then he started Lone Wolf Custom Gear as a way to still now put out new gear because after whatever, it's like, I'm trying to think like in the legal terms, it's like whatever, it's like,
same.
Non-compete
no, yeah,
disclosures.
after the
Right.
non-competes, that's what I was searching for. After those have run out, then at that point in time, he has the ability to now develop and make his own gear and start his own company. And so once that time had lapsed, he started Lone Wolf Custom Gear because he wanted to come out with new stuff, especially with his son Cody. And so they started Lone Wolf Custom Gear, and that could be part of why it's like Lone Wolf is now also switching at Novix. There's obviously a bunch of different rumors that you hear, online. And one of the things that I'd heard is that now with all the legal battles that they had, that Lone Wolf can't come out with new products under Lone Wolf's name because technically the DeQuistos have that Lone Wolf name. They can still operate and sell current Lone Wolf gear, but under the Novix name, which is why they're trying to rebrand. That's why they can now offer the same products that they did under Lone Wolf, but now they can start coming out with new products. So they're making that transition to the Novix name, if that kind of makes sense.
That's confusing as shit. But
Yeah.
We'll go with it.
Yeah.
Sounds great though.
But yeah, I mean, there's a
No,
lot of,
no,
awesome
yeah.
stuff that's out there, and, and different things to try. And so,
Absolutely.
everything just continues to grow and get, more lightweight and different features. I mean, sticks, it's like there's a ton of different sticks that are now out there. So it's just awesome to see.
I know. It's like over the last, like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years, it's like a total like when you used to have a Viper climber, like you were the shit. You were the guy. You were the mobile guy. And now you're not the mobile guy anymore.
Yeah, you're
That's
just
how
the
I
guy
feel.
carrying a huge lunk of aluminum on her back.
Yeah, and then it's like cling, cling, cling. They're never going to find me in the woods. Bouncing around. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we take off?
We could touch on stuff right
Let's
now.
go.
we-
Let's
we
go.
keep going.
Let's go. Let's go.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was gonna say. So when we talked about like the saddle hunting, so it's one that you can also pair it, like as I started to mention, with hang-ons. Like so, the second buck that I shot on November 7th, that was using a saddle. So that's the first buck that I've shot from a saddle.
Yeah.
But it was also with a hang-on. So in that particular spot, I had put a hang-on up, so I just had a platform that was bigger, but I also wanted to have a saddle that I could, sit up in, kind of be more comfortable and face behind the tree, and also be able to shoot more stable.
What it like comfortable level, just sitting on a hang on with the platform. You can stand up if you get like sick of sitting.
Yep.
Like, how important is that saddle? Like, is it that much more comfortable where you can sit all day? I've heard people like, oh, you got to go to the saddle because you can sit all day, no problem. You can sit in a stand, like a hang-on stand. I generally always stand up just because that's
And
just
I'm the
how I
opposite.
hunt.
I'm always sitting down. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, even when I shoot bucks, I'm sitting down. And so in this particular spot, it's like the reason that I kind of did it is that I had both options. I could, using the Ropeman one, I can go ahead and extend the amount of lead that I have, like from my saddle, from my safety strap to the tree. I can then go ahead and extend that so I could sit down, just use the hang-on as just a regular, seat, or I could shorten it up. Now I'm facing towards the tree, but I can sit down into it and kind of use it like a saddle, being supported at my hips, taking some of that weight off, standing up. But also now if I'm going to be shooting behind the tree off to, it's like my left-hand side because I'm right-handed, I'm now more stable and more steady versus just standing up. I can lean out away from the tree. I can swing around to one side. And having that bigger platform of a hang-on, that also really helped. So that's, exactly how it played out on that second buck that I got on November 7th.
All right, everybody's back from their pee break. Nick had to leave, so Brendan LaVirtue is stepping in Nick's Nick Engler's spot. Brendan, say hey.
Hey.
Hey. I think for now we're going to go on to some deer tactics, right? So if we start in the spot we are right now, it's March, 13th, 14th, 13th?
13th, I think.
Sure.
13th.
Right?
Adam, you went in the woods today,
Yep.
this
out there
morning?
This morning.
What happened? What did you do this morning?
I went for doing some shed hunting.
Yeah.
I got a few different areas that I like to check out. This is one I hadn't been into yet this year. South-facing ridges, everything you look, it's the areas where I found my largest two sets of sheds by far. It just crazy antlers, really good set. Didn't find any,
Yeah.
but looking for old buck sign last season's job. There's still enough snow out there that I couldn't really see scrapes and stuff like that, but I bring the dog with me. She's a
Running around.
she's a plus, but she finds a lot of stuff that I'd miss.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just going out there, just looking to see, it's been a hard year, I think, on the deer too. So I don't know. I always like going out and see what type of effects the coyotes have had on the deer.
Do you guys get hammered with snow?
Not that we got hammered with snow, but the way the weather's been with everything, rain coming in and then everything freezing up.
That crusty
8
shit.
weeks ago, I slipped in my driveway, screwed up my shoulder and elbow, and it's still not right.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so the deer have been having trouble, and there hasn't been a time I've gone out in the woods poking around yet I haven't found the signs of a deer being taken down by a coyote.
Yeah.
And out back, years ago, it used to be more. We used to have, I could run into 30 deer out there, like they were yarding up or something. Like you hear that out here.
Right.
So when we get heavy snow in years past, so I've found 5, 6, 7 deer lying around from coyotes. But we just went for a walk. I get up in the morning. I'm up at 5 o'clock every morning, no matter what. So I threw my new backpack on and grabbed the dog and went for a hike and bumped up a few deer, saw a couple of moose, bumped a coyote up, and made my rounds and came back home.
Nice. You're just going out there for a walk? You're
Yeah,
scouting?
going out for a walk. I don't hunt as much on that piece anymore. I'm
Yep.
kind of focusing on a different area. Getting to know Neil and these guys hunting the way they go after big bucks. I've never been that way.
Yeah.
I just like to go out, shoot deer.
Yeah.
We eat deer. I like to put them in the freezer, hang them up. I don't care if it's a doe, but everyone likes to see a big buck.
Yeah.
But these guys are onto something. So the more you hear Neil talk, which I think is interesting for a lot of people, because you got to kind of wonder how a guy like this is able to do what he does.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty amazed. I tip my hat to him all the time. So you start listening to him and start thinking, I'm going to see if I can't put some of this stuff together and you know.
It's like puzzle pieces.
Right. So the bucks I'm kind of hunting over in Mount Vernon's another spot. So this is just out behind the house.
Yeah.
Although we used to shoot a lot of deer out there, and there's some big deer out there, but it's good. And like, you know, backup plan to a backup plan. You can't just stick to the same piece of woods. You got to find a bunch of pieces of woods, run through them, because what might be going on one year, it might not be going on the next year. Things change.
Yeah.
You know, and even on that piece out there, there's been a few lots that have sold.
Yeah.
So you get out there and you kind of go, oh shit, they cut
That's
this thing right
changed,
up. There's a
right.
house lot. This guy bought 15 acres. Or the old Lindstrom farm, that was about 35 acres, and they cleared 15, 17 acres of it.
Yeah.
So everything I used to know about deer running through there now have all changed. And so it's just good to get out there and look around and see what's going on out in the woods. You got to spend a lot of time in the woods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't, you know, people wonder, you know, I might not shoot deer the quality or the size that Neil does, but since the 90s, I've been putting deer down every year, a couple of deer a year. So I find a way to shoot them. But I boil it down to people say, oh, you know, you used to think, oh, you get lucky, shot another deer. Well, 30 years later, you kind of say, well, I'm still shooting deer.
Yeah.
So
It's not so much.
but I say
luck.
you got to get out in the woods. You got to
Yeah.
look around. You got to see what the sign is. Learn the terrain. See how the deer use a piece of woods, and then you can go into another piece of woods that you never stepped foot in. Find that deer sign. I love finding deer shit. Nothing makes me more happy than seeing the deer shit, because deer will shit 9 to 13 times a day.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for tracks are everywhere. But fresh shit you can kind of date a little bit easier than the rest. So when I get out there and see that, I'll get excited. But you got to get out in the woods and got to get out often. So
Yeah. Kev, what are you doing for your not postseason, or what do you call it? Not what's the opposite of post? Preseason.
Yeah, if it's not in season, it's
Yeah.
post or pre, right?
Off season, right?
Already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not post, not pre, off season.
No,
yeah.
I've been gathering cameras here the last few weeks. I was able to kind of go out and gather some in January, and then we got the snow and the real cold in February. In the last couple weeks, I've kind of cleaned up and gotten a bunch more. I've only got a couple more out that I haven't checked in 4 or 5 months. So I've been kind of grabbing cameras, but I've been doing a lot of just searching. That buck Dylan that I had mentioned earlier, that's kind of my main focus this year. You know, they say don't put all your eggs in one basket, but you
Sure
know,
did. Huh?
I've shot.
It's hard not to when you find a big one.
I mean, I shot my biggest deer ever in the same piece of woods. You know, searching after this
Yeah.
deer. So I mean, I measured it on Onyx a couple of days ago, and I'm looking at close to 3,000 acres that I'm searching for this deer in. I've got pictures of him over 2.5 miles away from each other. So there's plenty of land to search for this deer. So I'm out shed hunting, but I'm also just looking for sign. Looking for last year's sign. With the snow melting this week, the scrapes are going to be a little more visible now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to really try and spend a lot more time out there now that snow is starting to disappear. Before it was basically just looking shed hunting, looking for big tracks, looking for big signpost rubs, stuff like that you could see. But now that the weather's getting a little bit better, next couple weeks I'm going to really try and put a lot of miles in, try and find more scrapes. You know, learning a lot from Neil and scrape hunting, and trying to learn every inch and piece of woods that I can about this deer. I've never found sheds before. I found 1 or 2, I think, in my life, just kind of stumbling upon it. So I'm not overly focused on finding sheds, but
More the sign.
yeah, I'm really scouting for next year than I am shed hunting. So that's what my goals are here in the next couple weeks. And then come April 1st, I'm almost 100%, 110% into turkeys.
Yeah.
So I'll be doing tons
Hear
of
that, Neil?
I will not be. No.
So from April 1st through May 31st, that's where my mind is at
Yeah.
constantly. So the next 2 weeks, I guess we're halfway through March already. Crap.
Yeah. It's coming up.
Yep.
Coming.
So gonna try and get as much deer work in as I can now, because by the time turkey season ends, it'll be green up and it'll be a disaster trying to get through some of these areas.
Velvet will be coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back out getting cameras out again. I spent this morning just emptying batteries out of cameras. That way I start everything fresh, new with fresh batteries. So emptying them all out, making sure everything's organized, see what kind of straps I need to be replaced and stuff like that. So just kind of organizing
maintenance,
organizing gear, updating some camera equipment here the last couple weeks, just as far as video goes. But yeah, just scouting for next year and, trying to figure out as much as we can, learn as much as we can. That's the key, always learning.
Brandon, you've been out shed hunting a handful of times, but you just sent me a picture like last week with a buck still had antlers on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
on a spy. Yeah, a nice buck. One of your target bucks.
Yep, I saw him last year at 30 yards and he busted me. But yeah, he was hanging out with a bunch of does too, and I've probably put 30 miles on in the last couple months looking for sheds, and I haven't even found one.
That's what I've got so far. It's about 30 miles. Yeah.
But just looking for that sign, like Kevin said. I mean,
I'm just surprised that the thing still has antlers on his head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to somebody the other day. It's like I was trying to gain access to a place that I might be able to hunt this coming fall, and so I, pulled up to this driveway, and there's a guy. He's, luckily the old guy sitting out on his deck, and I'm like, all right, cool. It's like I thought this is a spot that I may be able to gain permission, but just the old timer sitting on his deck that obviously seemed like it was going to be even more likely, and so I started talking to him, and he's like, oh yeah, I got deer all fall that are out in my yard, and he's like, there was
don't say.
Oh yeah, he's like, if you want to shoot deer, you can just sit right on my deck with me right here, and we can be sitting on the deck, and you can just take one out with your bow. I was like, all right, well that's hopeful, but to the the buck still holding things that he had said, yeah, there was that rock wall over there. He said just a couple of days ago there was a buck that hopped over that rock wall, and he was still holding those antlers. I was like, no shit.
It's almost like they're gonna be They're
gonna
like
get pushed off.
A kid, like a kid with a still has a tooth in or whatever.
Yeah.
They're gonna fall off.
Hey, that's good for the deer though. It means they're healthy.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, some some are still holding, but then I found that one. I don't know when that was in January, but I found that one freshie that had just dropped, not too far into January, and then I'd bumped in to. There was another buck that I went in just kind of pulling some cameras out of a piece of woods, and I looked down the ground. And I'm like, oh, there's fresh blood. I'm like, well, this is a deer just dropped his antlers, and I'm backtracking his tracks, coming to other boot tracks, and then all of a sudden I see look up and see a guy standing there. Well, he's kind of crouched down. I'm like, wait a minute. I think I know that guy. Zach?
Is he bleeding?
I'm like, is that him? And of course he has a guilty look on his face. Looks like I just caught him jerking off or something. And actually what he's doing is he just found the
sheds?
he just found the second to match the set. And he's trying to hide him because he looks up and sees another guy that's clearly in there. And he's like, Neil, is that you? And he's like, oh, I'm glad it's you. He's like, holy shit. He goes, I didn't want somebody to see these.
No,
So-
this is definitely a posted piece. I shouldn't be in here.
No, it was just it's that match set. It's like he's like, oh shit, I don't want somebody else to know about this buck. So that was pretty cool. But that was back in January. So some are falling off early, and obviously most of them usually drop end of February. Going into March.
I'm always
but-
petrified of like you shoot a buck like late season. What's December 5th is the firearm cutoff. 4th or whatever.
Around there,
Nice.
yeah.
Right.
It changes
But
every
you
year,
see,
but it's right around
you
there.
see people out there like, oh yeah, I went to go drag my buck out and rip the antlers right off of it. Like, oh.
Or you can do what I did in 2019, break half the rack off.
Broke the skull plate.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
What? Did you drop it off something?
No. So that was a late season buck. So I shot that one down in Central Mass. So it was right at the end. It's probably middle of December. So I shot that one with a shotgun. And so dragged it out by its antlers, no problem. Was tugging on that thing, pulling them out of the woods, and got it home. And so when I hung it up on the game pole at home, I had hung it up by its rack, so I wanted to get better pictures of it. And I said, well, I'll flip it over the other way once all the blood's drained out of it. So it's hanging up by its rack. And I said, oh, I left the heart in it still. I need to take that out, before I go to bed for the evening. So I reach up in it. I'm trying to cut the heart out, and I'm like, oh, let me just pull this thing out. So I grab a hold of the heart, and I'm just yanking on it to pull it down. All of a sudden, where the strap was in between its G2 and G3, I just heard a crack. The whole deer drops about a foot down. I wrap my arms around it as it's dropping down, thinking that the branch broke up above me. And so I'm wrapped up this deer, and it drops, and I look up, and one of the antlers just folded right in. And I'm just like, fuck. I'm like, you idiot.
Yeah,
And so-
I did it.
So then, of course, yeah, it literally snapped like the skull plate. Like, so at the base of its antler, there was like a triangle chunk where the pressure of me pulling on it just snapped the skull
No
plate.
shit. Huh.
So in the pictures of that buck, it's like the Massachusetts buck that I shot in 2019. It's like, yeah, I'm holding that antler on and all the pictures.
He's holding it in place. That's all
Your
he did.
inside spread went down a little bit.
Well, I mean, from that point, now that it's mounted on the wall, it's like, it looks just the same. Yeah.
Good enough.
He was a good taxidermist.
Yeah.
Who
Dave
wants,
Berger,
who wants to
Connecticut.
measure this? Pulling it out. Yeah, that's 27.
I told him to, put a few extra inches in there. But,
Yeah.
Doing like spring scouting, getting out in the woods and seeing where deer are moving and where, sign on trees is fine and scrapes. How important is like, how can I put this? So if you're going out shed hunting and you're fighting sheds, do you feel like that is a core area for deer? Anybody can answer this. I feel like up here, I see like a condensed area of deer sign, and when you find sheds, they're probably all in the same area because it's like a wintering area. When I go to put cameras out in the summer and spring, it is not the same. Everything changes,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And it's whether it's food source, whether it's weather, or if it's rut driven. When you're doing your spring scouting per se, there's rubs on the trees. That's obviously not moving. But the deer trails in the snow, you can see how important is that like late season or early spring season scouting for a core area of a deer.
So I guess with the sheds, just example based is that I have the spot that we talked about earlier. It's like where I ended up, shooting that buck September 19th this last season. That was a spot that I found 3 sheds last year. And so then I found the scrape there, I put a camera, and that's where I killed that buck. But I've also not only finding 3 sheds there last year, I found 3 sheds there already this year. When I went back to search for sheds, I found that fresh one, and then 2 that were left over from the previous year, one of which was actually, within sight of where we set up on that buck and killed him. It was laying there. It's like when we killed him, that shed was already on the ground. We just didn't see it or didn't find it, and it wasn't too far away. But some of those deer, having gotten pictures of them in other places, they're several miles away during the season. So they're not staying in that piece of woods. They're just, a lot of the deer, that's what I've kind of found. The bucks will go to one area and winter there for whatever the reasons are. Some leave and go back to their home range, and others stay there. So it just kind of varies. It doesn't hurt to, go in. It kind of depends on where also too. If you're getting, more north and you're getting into, places where deer migrate and yard up, obviously that's going to be one thing. If you're talking more southern New Hampshire going into Massachusetts, it's like they may not travel very far. That could be, potentially in their core area. Because there was a shed that I found back in, it was either 2017 or it was probably 2018, of the buck that I killed in 2019, a buck that I called the Big Six. So that buck that I killed on October 4th, the previous year, I'd found his shed.
The same general area?
Yeah, it was, maybe a mile away. And so it was a spot that he used during the season. I had tons of pictures of him there. He just would kind of range, about anywhere from 1.5 miles to 2 miles is kind of what he would range. I'd have pictures on him one day, 2 miles, to the west, and the next day, a couple miles to the east. So he would hop around. But this time of year though, it's like when you're going out, it's good to, have, I guess, like an objective of you're trying to get in the woods, you're trying to find sheds. Like that's what you're after. So you want to get in the woods. And if you're doing that though, you're not going to be as effectively scouting. So I think that's some of the difference that now I've started to actually find sheds in the last couple of years. I've gotten, a lot of advice from guys that are good at it. One of my buddies, Pat Burns, he's a master at finding sheds. Like he just found an awesome match set today, actually. So for him, he's just an absolute pro at finding him. He's taught me a lot. So now that I have the confidence when I go in the woods, since I've found sheds, like I'm actually looking for sheds. Like I'm not just, hey, I'm stumbling through the woods enjoying this, nice day. I'm looking for the shape of an antler, like that, that hook of the beam sticking up. And so if I'm searching for sheds, I'm not effectively scouting. But other times I'll just like kind of pull that vision back from looking for an antler to now I'm scanning the woods, looking for scrapes.
I guess that was
rubs.
my question: is like how there's a difference between shed hunting and your like your spring scouting, and where does that like collide? I guess that was my question. Does it have anything to do with what you're gonna do during deer season, where you're searching? I know you're in the woods and you're hunting sheds. Is there anything? I just feel like where I hunt or where I live in my backyard is like you can go and see where deer are now, and they will not be there in October or November. It's just a different scenario. So I'm always like conflicted of like when people, oh, this is a core area because, and I just had this conversation off the air with Rob Richardson actually last weekend. I was like, I don't know if it's where you live or how important is the shed hunting, and this is where like a core area of a deer, because I feel like every time I go put cameras, there's no deer sign there. Like in the wintertime, they're digging up acorns. You can see where they're like, hanging out, but it seems to always, it's not the same.
Well,
when
sure.
deer season comes,
I got an example for you. So 2 weeks ago, I scouted an area. It's a south-facing and west-facing slope, and it's there's an old cut in there, so it's some heavy cover, but there's a ton of oaks in there. And when I hunted it the past season, you could hear the acorns just raining in there.
Yeah.
So I had kind of gone into it thinking that this was gonna be a good winter area for the deer, but I also jumped some big body deer that I get eyes on during the season out of certain pieces of this.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go back in there and see, are these like bedding areas or these buck bedding areas? What's it looking like? So I kind of zigzagged this whole side hill, and it's torn up in deer sign. There's beds everywhere, just feeding sign everywhere, and I was pretty hopeful I was finding a shed that day. I had some pretty high confidence just from the deer sign, and it was what I have read and listened to podcasts, and everything
seems
have
like
ironed
it's
out
right there. Yeah,
correctly. So I didn't find anything that day. I pulled a bunch of cameras, and yeah, there's plenty of deer in that area, and just I didn't find the sheds that day. But this past Friday, 2 days ago, I scouted a piece 2 miles to the north, but it's all kind of the same woods, really. And it's an area where I have pictures of deer crossing a swamp going into this smaller piece, all during gun season last year. When the pressure picked up on one side, it seemed like it was pushing the deer to this side. And I'm like, all right, I want to go and see what's in this area for this coming deer season. It was more preseason prep work. But when I went into this thing, I found one set of deer tracks, and I did 5 miles in there. But
so it's totally different.
Completely different. So like one area, tons of deer sign, but I know that gets heavily pressured come season. And in this other area, 2 miles to the north, I know during season, just from cameras this past year, deer were going in and out of here a lot. But right now, there's absolutely zero deer sign in there.
Yeah.
So it's just something you do have to kind of keep in mind. It's almost like you have to be focused on one or the other, kind of what your goals are.
Yeah.
And I kind of went into this scouting session on Friday. I wasn't looking for sheds. That wasn't why I was there. If I found one,
absolutely great, yeah.
But I wasn't expecting it, just because I had a feeling, just based on terrain features, that the deer probably weren't going to be in here right now.
Yeah.
But it's a spot that I might be focused on more come November, just because you have to factor in hunting pressure at the same time.
Yeah, and I think that, kind of comes down to the differentiating between the two, right, is about setting goals. So it's, whether you're trying to go in with the goal of finding some sheds, right, which is awesome if you do. It's like, or the goal of, I'm going to learn this piece of woods and really scout the shit out of it and just go in there and try to break it down, because there's kind of two different approaches that you're going to have to it. If you're scouting the shit out of a piece of woods, there's a chance you could find sheds. While you're shed hunting, there's a chance that you can find unbelievable sign. It's like, that's the best scouting that you've ever done, and it's going to be that piece of the puzzle that you've been searching for. But it's really, whatever you're going to attack for that day, it's like just setting a goal of how you want to go about it and what you're trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
Like you said, a lot of it's location based.
Yeah, I was going to say,
absolutely.
You've hunted, it seems like you've hunted the same, or not the same, but a good amount of area over a long period of time. You know where it's hot, where it's not hot, and you see deer here every year. Do you go in there in the winter and never poke around just to see what's going on?
The time.
Yeah.
I'm in the
What's
woods.
your opinion on that then? Like, is there deer activity in there, or is it slowed down?
When I go out and see winter activity, I honestly don't think of anything to do with my fall hunting.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I go in there. I'll follow tracks. Sometimes I'll go into the woods and I'll pick up some good deer tracks and run them and see. When I was out a few days ago in that piece, there's a new piece. I keep going a little bit deeper, learning a little bit more. Now I'm across the road, and I said, I'm going to power scout the shit out of this piece. Let's go. Grab my dog, and we hit it. And I walk back and forth, and I kick over about maybe 100 yards, and I'd walk that entire piece all the way to the back road and skip it over until we did the whole thing. But I just wanted to see what was in there.
Yeah.
But I don't look at, because I get in there, and we were talking on the way up. There was a spot I got up on these knobs that there were dozens and dozens of beds. There ain't going to be dozens and dozens of beds, and those deer ain't going to be there in the fall. It doesn't work that way. Some places maybe, but I don't look at it that way. I mean, I love just getting out in the woods and learning the woods. I like learning the lay of the land and learning how the deer use the land.
Yeah.
When fall time comes around, I've had my best luck getting out and putting up observation stands or getting out there. I'm a pussyfooter in the woods. If I'm going into Power Scout, I'll put them on. Kevin talks about Neil, this long-legged guy, can cover some ground.
Yeah.
They would lose me in the first 10 minutes and wouldn't see me for the rest of the day because I'm going to take a few steps and look. I can shed, hunt, and scout and everything at the same time because I think my speed is so slow. Some people might have better luck because they cover more ground, and when I want to cover ground, I'll cover ground. But I'm usually a pussyfooter in the woods and try to take it all in when I'm out there. But as far as what I find in the winter, turning it over into my fall hunting,
Nothing.
I don't put them together.
Yeah.
No. And a lot of times in the winter, deer seem to yard up a lot more. They get congregated. I still run cameras out there because it's just fun to get deer on there. Maybe you'll get lucky and get a couple bucks and say, well, maybe we'll go back and look for some sheds over there. But I don't put them. Maybe I'm wrong in thinking that way. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But that's just the way I've always approached it. But the winter time comes out, you see a lot of tracks, and that's pretty exciting. And you can tell a big track from the rest of them, even if they're melted out. You can see tracks that are right next to it that are melted out at the same rate, and you always find some that are a little bit large, and you say, hey, there's a buck running around in here.
Right.
So maybe come back in the fall, and I love observation stands. I've been a big fan of doing those. I get out there, I'll find a piece where I know there's some deer running around.
Just set a stand.
I'll find how can I get into this piece? Where can I get and watch that? The deer will never know I'm here, and I can slip back out of here. We got a good spot. A couple of years back, we were walking in on a brook. You could walk right in and out of this brook. You could walk in and out of there all day. We shoot deer. I've been shooting deer there for the last few years. But finding a way to get in and observing from a distance, closing in on them is kind of what I like to do,
Right.
I guess.
Well, I was going to say, that brings up a couple thoughts in my head is that, like, when I'm going in the woods, it's like, especially in the off season, I'm walking around scouting. It's like I'm turning on Onyx. I mean, I don't know if everyone here uses Onyx.
Yeah.
I have it, but I use it just to know where I am in the woods. Sometimes if you look at my Onyx app and Kevin's is so busy. I'm like, hey, I got to start doing something with
Got
it.
some fucking pins, bud.
I know it. I don't. If I have a signpost rub or something that really stands out, maybe I'll drop something down on there.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll use it to mark where I put a camera. I probably don't use it as well as you guys.
Well, so I was going to say, so Onyx is just amazing. It's like, so to be able to go in and just mark stuff on Onyx, like, so what I'll also do is wherever I've walked, I turn the track feature on, right? As soon as I'm getting out of my truck, track feature is going on. I do that for a couple of reasons. One, it's like, obviously I want to know where I've walked, but more importantly, I want to know where the hell haven't I been yet? Where's that spot that I haven't walked? It's like, because I've spent and beat the shit out of a piece of woods, there's going to be something I missed. Well, guess what? That's probably where Mr. Big could be hiding, and lurking around. So then on top of that, marking everything, like I'm looking at, Kevin just popped his phone up, and I'm looking at, he has a bunch of different colors. So when you mark stuff on Onyx, that's another feature that you can really do, is change the colors of your pins that you're marking. So with those signpost rubs that you're marking at them, right? You're just probably standard red, right? That's what they get marked as.
Yeah, I
right?
have a couple white ones.
Okay, well, the white ones.
My cameras.
I was gonna say. So with my cameras, what I'll do is that, like, if it's a camera that was where I had one but I pulled it, I'm turning it to black, right? So it's the camera's gone. Any cameras that are actively there, they're white. If it's a scrape that I think is gonna be hot, like that scrape where I killed that 8-pointer on September 19th, when I walked that piece of wood shed hunting and I found that scrape, I marked it white. Like, to me, it's like that's a spot that any of the pins on my camera that are in white, I will go, and you can do, I don't know if you guys have used the filter feature.
Steal his phone.
You can go and you can use the filter features. You can filter whatever content you want on onX. You can go in and say, I only want to look at scrapes. I only want to look at rubs. I only want to see where my cameras are. Then you can sort by color, okay? So if you mark shit by color, you can now go and say, I only want to look at white scrapes. I want to look at white cameras. So what I'll do is anything that is assigned to me that is like, Neil, you better get your ass back there. It's like, you better put a camera on this spot, whether it's just a break in a rock wall, whether it's a scrape, whether it's, it's like a bedding area. I'm going to mark it in white, and then I'm going to do a filter content. So now when it comes time to, before the season, I'm figuring out where to put my cameras. Holy shit. Back in February, I found the scrape. I forgot all about that. It's like, now it's like it jogs my memory. Now I'm going to go back to that spot. Yeah, and throw a camera there. So that's where onX is huge at just like seeing these trends and really being able to identify, it's like, what's like the hut sign. And it's something that, it's like Kevin, you've talked about doing is for you. It's like, it's almost the time of the year, the colors that you use. It's, is it, late season? Is it early season? It's like, so, I know you kind of change your colors doing that. But that is a really key feature of when you're doing all this scouting is, marking everything down and trying to go, and figure all this stuff out of those pieces of the puzzle. So where you've walked, where haven't you walked, what you're seeing for sign. And so I'm marking bedding areas, I'm marking scrapes, I'm marking rubs. And so it's like in a piece of woods, I can now start to kind of see the larger picture after a while. I can go back and dissect it. And so,
what do you consider a bedding area in New Hampshire? Just thick cover, or
so I guess so. That's another thing, right? So you're going to find in the wintertime, you're going to find a lot of doe beds, right? You're going to even potentially find buck beds, right? But then, so if you're looking at it from a hunting purpose versus a shed hunting purpose, right? If I'm looking and thinking, okay, let's fast forward to the fall, right? If I'm Mr. Big and I'm a giant buck, am I going to be bedding here? A lot of times the answer is no. There's not cover, right? And one thing that I've learned when we're talking about big mature bucks is they need safety to their back. They got to be, there's got to be something that's covering their six, right? So in that standpoint, it could be a road, it could be a house, it could be a pond, it could be it could be a cliff, right?
Walls are big too.
Yeah, so they need to have something to their back. So if I find a bed and I see, especially in the wintertime, it's a big ass toe dragging track, and it's and it's that bed that, okay, this is something that I just feel, it's like, especially if there's a rub like coming to it or leaving it, there's a scrape somewhat nearby, is it in a swamp, is it a thicket, I need to look at that and ask, why is this here? What is going on? And what is this going to be like in the fall? Then at that point, yeah, I'm going to mark that, it's like as a bedding area. I'll change it just from a bedding area to, it's like one of those white icons is what I'll use oftentimes. And then immediately I'm looking around for trees. I'm thinking about access. It's like all these different equations that go into it, because because you find a great spot, it's like, well, if you can't get there without blowing that buck out that you're after, well, what's the point of it? So a lot of times, all of a sudden, what turned into a shed mission or a scouting mission is now turning to how am I actually going to hunt this and how am I going to get here during the season? And I'm already kind of mapping it out because, like, it's like what we keep saying, the backup plan to the backup plan to the backup plan. I'm not going to have time to process this information during hunting season. It's like if I'm coming back in here, I already have to have pre-thought some of this stuff out, or I'm just coming in, I'm just a fumbling idiot at this point in time during the season when I walk back in the woods. So it's really just trying to take those extra steps. And so then from a scouting perspective, right, then kind of number one piece of advice that I can give to somebody, I guess, to kind of like go the opposite of kind of what you said, Adam, right? You were talking about when you go ahead and you walk in the wintertime, you want to see a bunch of signs, you zigzag a piece, right? Well, what I'll do is if I'm trying to go into a piece of woods to hunt it, I won't walk in the middle of that piece of woods, because to me, in some ways, that's almost useless in a way, where I'm only going to walk the perimeters. I'm going to go and circle. If this is a piece of woods, it's a square or a circle, I'm going to walk all around that piece of woods. And anything that I see along the edges of that piece of woods, okay, is there a break where in between houses where it connects to another piece of woods? Is there hunters over in this corner? There's a shit ton of tree stands, okay? Is there, in this corner, is there no access to park? Is there now no hunting pressure? Does it also connect to a big piece of woods? Well, now I'm seeing more deer sign over here. Now I'm seeing deer sign, I'm seeing buck sign. Well, okay, now, the only way to access this would be to come from this opposite side of the piece of wood, so that kind of sucks. Well, now I got to look at, just like the other day, I talked about the old guy sitting on his deck, right, and says you can shoot deer right off the deck with me here. Well, guess what? that's a spot that I can access it from if I get permission, right? Because now I'm slipping in. No hunters ever come into that piece of woods from that area because I'm parking in someone's driveway. So like those little things now are all kind of piece of the equation. So I've walked the whole perimeter. I've seen where the hunters are because nobody's entering the piece of woods from the middle, right?
Yeah.
So then from that standpoint, big bucks, they don't stay in one spot. They're bouncing around. So they're leaving this piece of woods and they're going outside of that piece of woods. They're coming back into that piece of woods. So where are they doing that from? If they're going to be entering and exiting a piece of woods, it could be, it could be late in the evening. It could be first thing in the morning. Is there a potential bedding area for that deer in that piece of woods, or do I need to leave that piece of woods and go into another pocket somewhere else? Just because I see sign or I get pictures of them there, that may not be the spot where I actually want to start hunting. So it's kind of looking at it differently, when you start trying to dissect maps and you start looking at scouting and what you're trying to, get out of it.
I think that's my biggest issue is like, I look at a map and you can, wherever we hunt, I'm like, all right, if it's public, there's a public parking spot. You can see roads behind it and it's a big tract of land. It's just hard for me to think of the big, like you explaining it around. We have a set of AA batteries here.
4-pack of batteries.
It sounds fucking great, and it looks like easy, for me to dissect that in my head.
Now you times that into 3,000 acres.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Well,
That's
some of the difference.
A big
right?
tract of land. It's hard to do.
So if you're talking southern New Hampshire, you're talking Massachusetts, and you're talking smaller chunks of land,
Yeah.
it's easier to do, right? Now you're talking a big tract of land. Okay, throw this battery pack away, right?
Yeah.
This was just a representation of a smaller piece of woods. Now you're talking we got the whole friggin' table here, right? So now at this point in time, you got to start looking at terrain features. What is going to dictate movement in this big piece of woods, right? Because now, even if you find where there's a bunch of sign, that deer isn't going to be there very consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to figure out what's the terrain feature that's going to dictate and funnel movement kind of through it.
Swamps,
It could-
ridges,
There's a bunch of
Saddles.
stuff,
Which is
right?
kind of how I shot my muzzleloader deer this year.
Yeah.
I picked that out as a spot that deer have to travel through to get from one spot to another.
it's a
even
pinch
though,
point at the end of a swamp, or
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, I've got steep terrain and cliffs behind me, and I've got a swamp and a pond in front of me. And for them, there's one
either walk around the swamp or come right here or in front.
come right here or walk around these cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of narrowed it. That's how I narrowed it down.
Yeah, and so with that, a lot of times, like if I kind of if I'm going into those areas and I'm thinking, all right, like this is one of those spots, right? Like if you're starting to all of a sudden see rubs, you're starting to see some scrapes. It's like now I'm going into, okay, if I am the buck, like how am I going to walk through this piece of woods? And it's kind of funny. It's like you'll start to realize, okay, if
You
I'm,
almost walk just like them.
yeah, it's like you'll start to realize, like, well, this is kind of where I want to walk. This
Yeah.
is kind of where I want to go. And then it's, oh, wow, there's another rub. It's like, okay, there's another scrape. It's like, or I'm following that buck track.
Yeah, it's like you're not bumping into them on accident. You're following the same path.
Yeah,
essentially.
But then you need to figure out, like, so the other things, you need to think about, okay, like if this buck is going to bed, it's like, where could he potentially bed? It's like, because then you need to get close enough to that bedding area, which, yes, in the big woods, it is a hell of a lot harder. It is very hard outside of the rut, right, to kill a mature buck in big woods. If you're not tracking and just, taking the hunt to them.
Yeah.
If you're waiting for them to come to you, it's substantially harder. So it's like at that point, I mean, yeah, it's like you got to then kind of find, it's like, I mean, the biggest keys are scrapes close to bedding. Like when a buck gets up out of his bed, even in September or October, they're going to go to a scrape. Like the first thing that they are doing is I'm getting up. It's like, okay, I'm getting my bearings. I'm smelling the air. It's like whatever they're going to do. They're going to walk somewhere to leave some sign. It's like, that's just,
Can you go over like communal scrapes versus just regular, like a what do they? I know some deer will just make a scrape. Same with a rub. They'll rub their antlers on a tree one time, and then they'll never come back to it again in that year. Same with a scrape.
yep.
I've seen scrapes that got like, oh, this is fresh sign. It's just a little scrape. You can put
Pre-rut stuff.
Yeah, you can put a camera over it, and they'll
Yeah.
never be there. You'll never get a picture.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
community scrapes up my way that all year.
Yeah.
All year
Put a
deer show
camera
up
in it.
at them. There's a couple of them, yeah, that they. I don't
think
care
the
what
licking
month of the
branches.
year it is.
I think the licking branches give them away the most.
Yeah.
If you find what I've seen from good community scrapes, the licking branches.
So
are
what
a
are you
lot
what are
more
you seeing,
worn out.
Kevin, on that licking branch that tells to you this is a good scrape?
You can visually see that they're chewed up, they're broken. There's just the branches are all worn down. There's no hemlock needles on the ends of them.
Knotted up.
You can see where the branch has hemlock needles 3/4 of the way down. Then the last few inches, there's nothing on it. You can actually see twigs snapped off, stuff like that. I've found under beech trees little small scrapes with a beech tree. I'm like, well, there's still leaves on this little limb coming off this beech tree. Like, it looks like a perfectly good limb. This is probably a one and done type of scrape is what I say to myself. It was just a buck cruising through. But the few community scrapes that I've kind of learned about and found, you see it and you're like, oh wow, this is a licking branch that gets hit all the time. It's like it just jumps out to me.
How much weight do you guys put into like rubs or like rub lines, if any at all?
I haven't put a ton into it much at all. It's like I said, in my limited experience, like I've been learning a lot more the last 5-6 years, but before that it was just guesswork. But now that I've kind of started learning more, I haven't put a ton into rub lines. I found a good rub line a couple weeks ago when I scouted that south and west facing slope.
Well, sometimes you see him and you're like, holy shit,
So
like every 50 yards. Like,
what that one told me
activity.
where it was in the direction it was traveling, it's actually, there's 2 class 6 or 4-wheeler trails pretty much going through this woods. There's one that runs right down the middle of it, and there's a couple that split off. Well, this rub line kind of came in at an angle right to an intersection of these trails. And what it told me is this is a spot maybe where these deer are crossing these 4-wheeler or these class 6 roads, which is kind of what I looked at it as. Because it's closer to where there's people action, I'm thinking it's going to be nighttime movement, but I'm probably going to have a camera on that trail come this summer, just to confirm to myself that, hey, this is where bucks are cruising to change pieces of woods. Is what I'm going to be using that specific rub line for.
Yeah, so on that, when you asked, it's like, well, how much weight do you put into it? I put a lot of weight because there was a buck there, right? It's like that laid that. But the main thing is what Kevin did is he tried to diagnose why, right? Like he wanted to try to figure out why are these rubs here? It's like because there's a reason that they're there. We seem to figure out why, right? And so you had said it's just a way that you're moving through the woods, that they're crossing over there, but there's more to that, right? It's like, well, where are they coming from? Where are they going? It's like, why are they coming and going from there? And so it's like there's a lot of weight to any sign that you find. It's just trying to figure it out. And it may not come to you. You may not figure it out, that day. But it's like you do have to kind of eventually start to figure out what it's there for. So any sign that you can see, it's like, whether it's rubs, whether it's scrapes, whether it's tracks, it's like whether it's bedding, you have to just try to connect those pieces of the puzzle and then figure out, like, within that puzzle, if you've asked why and if the light bulb's gone off and you're like, holy shit, this is why. It's like, well, how does that help you in your hunt? Like, how does that help you achieve whatever mission that you've set? And so that's different for every person, though. It's like what we talked about with setting goals. It's whether it's when you're scouting, whether you're shed hunting, whether you're hunting. Are you trying to kill that big buck in the woods, or are you just trying to go out and see deer? It's like and have an enjoyable hunt. It's like those are all different things that come into the questions you're asking yourself and the goals that you're setting and how you're going to analyze and interpret that data.
So when we're at 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Woo.
Here we go.
Wow.
I want to touch
Chatterboxes.
Yeah, I want to touch. Real quick. I want to do through like a scenario right now, like we talked about earlier. So right now, if you're gonna go out scouting, shed hunting, you find something you like, you set a camera. What are you looking for? If it doesn't work out, what do you do? So I know that you like to hunt scrapes. You like to find communal scrapes. How do you find those? What are you looking for? Licking branches. At that point, I'll let you go, and then I have more questions to add into that. So
on that, so you were saying, I guess you asked a few questions, so it's like
a lot of questions.
That
was a loaded question.
It's all good. Yeah. So you
got a little fired up there.
Well, it's all good. So I think you were asking, like, one that I heard was how to identify a communal scrape, right? And I think, Kevin answered that, about the licking branches, looking at that, you're seeing, it's like the the end of the branch, looks like it's been chewed up. It's like there's more, the bark taken off, so they can put more of their scent on it.
It's harder to find in the winter because
it's actually it's just as easy to find in the winter as it is in the
there's
fall.
nothing
The branch,
on the ground.
yeah, the ground part
Yeah,
is
the
the hard
ground.
part. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't see that, that scrape on the ground, that dug up dirt, right?
Yeah.
But if you're stumbling through the woods and all of a sudden you're like, holy fuck, there's a branch that looks like it got exploded.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wasn't from any other reason except for, it's like,
And it's about eye level. You can, yeah.
yeah.
It
So
didn't
it's
grow
like,
that way.
yeah.
Some of them just kind of jump out at you. Like,
No,
I'm
yeah,
gonna go look at that branch.
I've seen
'cause
them,
That
yeah.
one looks like it could be.
And then from that standpoint, the snow that's there, because that is more bare dirt and more exposed, it's like that is going to look different kind of from the rest of the snow. So even
Right.
if it's not melted all the way out yet, that will be one of the first spots that melts, though, I guarantee you that. So it's going to show up, sooner. So, yeah, so once you found that, and then, of course, one of your other questions is that, well, okay, what if you put a camera there and it doesn't do anything? Well, I may leave it there. I may take it down. I could be kicking myself in the ass for taking it down, because that could be a hot spot come hunting season. So it's just what we talked about, the percentages, right? Do I have a gut feeling that could be a spot during the season,
Just
right?
like a rut location.
It could be. So
Leave it and buy more cameras.
Right.
Yes, Kevin, you hit it right on the head, right?
Send me the link.
Yeah. So you need to buy a shitload of cameras and just have them everywhere, and pay somebody to go check them for you, and hope they actually report back in the data. Yeah. But yeah, so with that, I mean, yeah, you may put a camera there, and it may not, turn out to anything at all. It's like, or it could turn out to be awesome, or it could be shit that year, but the following year it could be awesome. I mean, there's been spots where it's been one year it's been awesome, and then the next year it's been horrible. It's like, or I've hit it on the horrible year, I've pulled out of there, and I've had someone that says, hey, have you ever hunted this spot before? And then it's like all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I've hunted there before. I ran cameras, and why don't you go check it out and put a camera there? And next thing I know, I'm like, wow, this spot's awesome. It's like, yeah, I wish I had stuck it out a little longer. It's so there's all that stuff, that happens. But it's trying to figure out, like, I think with the amount of time that you have, trying to figure out how to best use that time for what you have for goals. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have unlimited time, I mean, the guys that are sitting here at this table, like, we love to get out in the woods. It's like, if you have any spare time, you're going to be out walking. It's like, whether it's hunting, whether it's fishing, whether it's, you guys going after the birds, it's like you're spending time, in the woods. It's
The
That's what
birds.
you're going to do. Yeah.
The
Did he call them the birds?
Turkey hunting gets us a lot of
Did he
deer
call
intel.
the turkeys the birds?
The dirty birds.
Yeah.
No, I think this is great. Like I struggle with, I've always struggled with targeting deer. I'll have deer on camera in the summertime, and in velvet, and everything's good, everything's great, and you think you're gonna go out there opening day of bow season, and guess what? Go fuck yourself. Ain't gonna. Everything changes, whether it's pressure, whether it's the velvet shedding, and there's a bunch of different scenarios, but it doesn't work out.
We talked about that on the way up here. The difference
Yeah.
between September 1st and September 15th
Yeah.
is night and day.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Potentially, yeah. We were just saying, if you could hunt September 5th here right now, the number of deer that you could have patterned
Oh yeah.
instead of September 15th.
Can you imagine?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, then that's where I get back to the percentages, though, right? If you have, 10 spots, right? It's like where you've had all those velvet bucks that are there. One of them,
It's going to stay on that pattern.
yeah. So it's like, if you've put enough time in and you've figured out enough areas, 9 of those 10 spots could go to complete shit. They could give you those double birds that you were talking about. But that one spot that's still there, holy shit, it's still there. I can slip in there September 15th, September 19th, and make it
Yeah.
happen.
What is the percentage of? You're running mostly cell cams.
So no, I run. I mean, I think right now, I'm up to about 60 cameras that I run in total.
Holy smokes.
So of that, I mean, I think I have 20 now. I think that are cell cams. So I mean, that would be a
What
third.
gets you excited? Like, what's the one that you're like, all right, I'm pulling this is not pulling cameras because you got 60 of them, but what
Oh, I
gets you?
pull a lot of them. Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
sure
so
you do.
so last year, for instance, with 60 cameras, I had cameras in at one point. I said, you know what? Let me just do this research thing. How many pieces of woods? Not like, okay, is there a camera here? Then directly across the street, I have a camera. It's like it's kind of the same piece of woods. I had cameras in 20 different pieces of woods, 20 different areas between Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. 20 different areas. I mean, so at that point, like, yeah, I mean, sometimes I'm shutting down 4 of them.
60
and
cameras doesn't sound like that much when you talk about
20 different areas.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, one of the areas, I had 20 cameras.
yeah,
Like,
trying to figure it out.
I had it figured out. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out where I'm going to go kill some shit. Like,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the difference is that, like, so at that standpoint, the cell cams are great for 2 different purposes. One, you can get, like, in New Hampshire, close to live updates. You can't get live updates, but at the end of every day, the way that I've had it set, and they might be changing this law, but the way that I've had it set is that in the evening, once I'm done hunting, 8 o'clock at night, I'm getting those pictures sent to me. So then, I'm, within the same calendar day law, I'm, not going to be, in jeopardy, of that law within the same calendar day. So then any information that I get happened, it's like that day. The next day, I can formulate a game plan. But that's also old information. It's very seldom that you're going to go and get a picture and be like, oh, I'm going to go hunt there tomorrow, and the buck's going to be there. No, they're on loops, 3, 4, 5 day loops. It's just one of those that, so from that standpoint of the cell cams, it's great because you're getting that information kind of more up to date is one way to use it, or I'm going to put it in spots that I never have time to drive there. I'm not going to be able to go check this cam up on top of this mountain up in Maine somewhere. It's like, I'm not going to drive to, western Massachusetts and go check this cam. It's going to take me 3 hours to go there, 3 hours to get back, 2 hours in the woods. Like, that is a whole day trip in itself. So there's the thing that I love the most about cell cams, which I don't think a lot of people think about, is that it allows me during a season, instead of checking cameras, I can actually hunt. I can scout.
Yeah.
I can spend more time being a sportsman. People can say that technology can ruin it, can potentially ruin the fair chase or the ethical. I say no. It actually takes me away from checking cameras and researching technology to now I am actually able to just enjoy being in the woods, scouting, hunting, doing something, as a sportsman, and not have to worry about, checking cameras and stuff like that, because the way I use cameras is to target mature bucks. So it's from that standpoint, it's not just about getting a deer that walks by the camera. So I love the way New Hampshire has had it set up, about the nothing in the same calendar day. I think that is great. I know other states is different. You can get a picture and, go hunt that deer, immediately.
It's almost impossible though.
So it is. So you look
If
at
you
it.
get a picture of my camera out back right now, and I go try to hunt that thing, it's gonna
He's gone.
blow-
He's-
it's gonna
he's-
Yeah,
blow out.
states with bait sites,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Those are the
Yeah.
ones where
Yeah.
they bait. They're going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I totally get in that standpoint. So it's like I know, somebody brought up a point at one point in time about I think the law, which I've never heard this really mentioned other than this one person. Just like right now with a bait site, right, Adam? You can't have a camera or you can't have a bait site within 100 yards of your house, right? Cell cams probably shouldn't be within maybe 100 yards or 200 yards of your house or like maybe a bait site, right? So you can't use it as a live action kind of camera to walk out your door right now. Like, I saw sitting
I
out
see
there,
your point.
there's, the buck target standing, sitting outside the archery target, right?
Well, there goes
be right
my
back.
plan.
So if you knew you had a pile of apples sitting right out your deck, right?
Yeah.
And camera says there's buck standing there right now,
Then
you
you can
could
go on the-
walk
on
out
the
and
deck,
shoot him.
yeah, right,
But
yeah.
if at this point, if you couldn't run that cell camera within 200 yards of your house, like odds are you're not going to, if it's out of range of shooting of your house, if you had to grab your gun or your bow and walk out of sight of your house and sneak up on that deer, you're probably not doing
Yeah.
it, even if you know
Good
he's there
luck.
right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good
I mean,
luck, yeah.
because you can be tracking in the snow and you can cut a fresh track in the snow and you can hop on it and you still have to put your work in to go and get that buck. So that is where, as technology changes, it's the more people that talk about this stuff and discuss it, which is something that I know to me has been really eye-opening, that it's like oftentimes as hunters, when it comes to fair chase, we're the ones who put limitations on ourselves. Look at freaking Adam. He's using a traditional bow to go hunt deer, okay?
No.
He is limiting himself as a sportsman to make fair chase. I am trying to hunt the oldest, most maturest bucks in the woods. I'm limiting myself. So we are putting limitations on ourselves as hunters and setting goals. So the laws make it so there is certain just standards of fair chase, but then we're actually putting further limitations on ourselves and how we want to do it.
Yep.
So I think, that's awesome when it comes to setting goals. And so this is something that, it's like I watched, I don't know if you guys have watched the documentary that Steve Ranella put out, The Stars in the Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talked about that. It's like how some hunters with the fair chase, they put further limitations. And so I think when it comes to these laws, it's like they should be there for fair chase. But as the discussion continues to evolve, the more input that's there, the more you learn and the more we can adapt these laws to really, I think, figure out what is the right purpose of how we should be, kind of implementing these laws and how they should be executed, I guess.
Absolutely. We just had this conversation. I think you were here, right? We were having this conversation about Utah just got rid of their cell cams, like no more cell cams, and I think maybe just game cameras in general, like it's not fair chase anymore. And I don't think that it's so far along.
I don't agree with that. I don't know.
I know. Well, I feel like it's not that far along when it becomes an issue.
No, I mean, as far as game cameras really giving you such an upper hand that you take the fair chase out of it.
Yeah.
I've always, especially after I've gotten into tradition the last couple of years, I always said that compound bow or rifle gives you more of a unfair advantage than a camera ever will.
Yeah.
I mean, the rifle itself, you guys shoot deer 300 yards away.
Yeah.
Is that really fair chase? You don't even have to chase them.
Yeah, it's not fair
You can
chase
just see them
anymore.
over there.
Yeah,
And
you're right.
You look at modern bows,
You're right.
especially shooting the archery. I'm limiting myself to maybe 30 yards. 20 is really want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Brendan's shooting 100 yards with his bow.
no, some
He's
of these
fine.
guys are. I see Kevin, shoot
Yeah.
that 3D shoot, and he, 70 yard, those bonus shots or whatever at that big bear or the lion that's sitting there, whatever.
Yeah.
And these guys can adjust their pin and take a shot and do it.
Yeah.
So if I
practice
say
up
if
to
you really
100.
want to take
That's
fair
what he
chase,
does.
you got to take that out of not the cameras. I don't think
I mean,
cameras are cool. You get pictures, but
Don't take my bow away from me.
The
No,
end
no,
goal is
no,
to
I
get
wouldn't.
A deer. I mean, we buy licenses to get deer.
Yeah.
That's just an aid to get us a deer, And
yeah.
to take that away is, I don't know.
I think it's more the people who maybe don't put the time and effort in and aren't as successful as the people who are, and they got a quick scapegoat saying, well, you take his camera away, you wouldn't shoot a deer.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bunch of
Guess
nonsense
what?
because I run just a small handful of cameras, and I've never shot a deer that I've got a picture on a camera. Never. And I don't know. I don't think the cameras give you such an unfair. Even the cell cams. I got 2 of them that I run. They're kind of cool. You kind of get a picture to your phone. You think, oh, smoke. Maybe, and like Neil said, they're great for people who can't get to spots.
Mm-hmm.
You get land up in Osprey. I always thought that'd be a great place to put it. It's 2 hours out. You're not going to go up there and check your camera. You got to turn it into a
Right.
whole day event just to see what's going on. And I got buddies who got
Call me, I'll go check. I'll
land
put
down
your
in
card.
Kentucky and Ohio where they lease lands where
Yeah.
they put cameras out.
Right.
So, but no, I never agreed with that.
No,
being
I feel the
unfair.
same way. Like, if you're going to get out there, get out there.
Although Neil's got 60 cameras, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's like a
And I'm
booby-
going to be getting more.
It's a booby trap.
But yeah, I mean, then with that too, it's like, I mean, even, with the cameras, I also, kind of look at one thing that I've thought, a lot about that I think is kind of a cool concept that you get to talk about on podcasts. I mean, because, podcast is just a great way to, share information. Obviously with social media, it's like there's a lot of information sharing. So I know a lot of people are able to, kind of mimic what other people have done. I kind of think back, it's like, I wish, it's like 10 years ago, it's like, when I started thinking about getting into archery, there was a model to kind of follow of someone else who had done it before me, right? And I just got into archery because I can start hunting earlier, right? It's like
Less pressure. Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, for me, it was just the season. I grew up in Maine. I'd only, gun hunted before. So I was like, okay, well, in New Hampshire now, it's like, wait a minute. I don't have to wait till November. I can start hunting September 15th. Holy shit. Yeah, a month and a
Mosquitoes
half.
suck, but guess what? I'm hunting.
Yeah, right. So it's like, so then I start to look at it. Well, you look at all the different states that we have, right? It's like, New Hampshire starts September 15th. It's like Massachusetts, you have, October 4th, Zone 10 opens. Then you have the rest of the state, it's like the third Monday, into October. You have Maine, the expanded archery zones. It's like, so it's like how to kind of put a template with what you want to do throughout the season, whether it's bow hunting, whether it's muzzleloader hunting early in New Hampshire, whether it's late in Maine or late in Massachusetts. whether you want to go head for big woods, whether you want to hunt the smaller, places, whether you want to do some tracking in the snow. It's like we have all these opportunities right around us. And it's like, it's like I haven't ventured, over into New York. It's like, Connecticut, Vermont, but there's all these places that you can go. And so it's trying to almost figure out, like for me, it's like a map and a template. It's like with these states, how do I want to focus my time to be able to enjoy these amazing opportunities, that we have with all these states around us. Last year, I had said, it's like I think like a lot of people, it's like I want to start doing some tracking. It's like I've tracked before and I've been successful, but I wanted to chase snow. And unfortunately,
We didn't get shit for snow.
there was not shit.
I bank on snow every year. That was my first tracking buck right there. That's 4 years ago. But I've tracked that bitch for 4 miles and I shot him in his bed.
That's fucking awesome.
Good stuff.
I mean, shooting a buck in the bed, yeah, that
was like the best thing ever.
Yeah, and so it's like, with all those opportunities, it's like I said, hey, I got a 7600, which on that note, anyone listening, I'm looking for a 308 carbine in 7600. I'm just saying, if it's out there, there's one right there you're going to let me take home?
No, it's an odd 6.
Oh, well,
76.
I'm looking for 308 because
it's not a 76. It's not a semi. It's a pump.
All right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, 7600. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I have a 35 Wayland that I got, and so from that standpoint, I love hunting with that. But I'm looking for something that I can actually afford to shoot. And I have a shit ton of 7.62. It's like ammo.
My dad just brought a 22 over.
Yeah, right. But yeah, that's like another thing. So with my gear, I've tried to like make sure that now it's like my guns going from shotgun to muzzle loader to rifle. I'm going to start running all the same scopes. I'm trying to somewhat go with the same type of feel like in a gun now. So there is that similarity as you switch the season. So I'm not fumbling for a bolt versus a pump versus...
You pull it up and it's there.
It's there. It's like, yeah. So that's where, though, we have all these opportunities. And so it's trying to figure out, like, I think for a lot of people, it's like what they want to do going into a season, like what they enjoy, what they have for time, and where they want to go that they can best kind of do these things. Because listening to these podcasts, right, it's like you hear, or watching YouTube videos, it's like you see these adventures, you see these things that people are going on, and it leads you to say, wow, it's like I want to do that tracking. It's like watching Hal Blood, watching Lee Libby. It's like in these videos, like Timmy Bolduck. It's like you see these people that go and do these tracking adventures. It's awesome. Like it gets you excited to want to do it.
Yeah.
It's like then you see other people, being successful. It's like, archery hunting. And so it's just trying to figure out how can I set my season up and have those opportunities to try to, make that stuff happen. And so that's one thing that we have a lot of opportunities. So I've put a lot of thought into figuring out how I try to set up a season to be able to kind of capture all that, where you have New Hampshire, you can, basically bow hunt, early season in almost 4 weeks. And then you can start, hunting, whether it's, going into Maine, whether it's going into Massachusetts. And then it's time to grab that gun and take off, for big woods.
Wait
and
for
just,
snow.
Yeah.
Didn't happen last year. It was a bummer.
But next year, I mean, if it didn't happen this year, the odds are
it's going to happen. I
it'll
hope
be
so,
there.
man. That's what I bank on every year. I'm like, all right, if it snows, I'm going to get a deer. If it doesn't snow, I'm probably not going to get a deer.
Spy point pictures just came in.
Uh-oh.
What'd
What
you
do we
get?
got, Kevin?
What you got, Kev? Come on.
Probably a whole
My
lot.
cameras are on my table.
I get a lot of squirrels these days.
I was getting turkeys. I was
Turkey
surprised.
season.
Yeah, kind of
Oh,
crazy.
wait a minute. Hold on.
What do you mean? What do you mean, hold on?
Well, no, I was just getting
We're going to
some
name
of-
this
some of mine, too.
podcast Turkey Talk with Neil Pendleton.
Everyone was like, I don't believe it.
Yeah, we're at like 3 hours here. Let's wrap it up. Go over the tethered saddle hang and learn. What is
Yeah,
it
so
called?
it's a teach and train is what they call it.
All right.
Yep, put on by Tethered. It's going to be April 17th over at Moore Sporting Goods in Hillsboro. Just go online either directly to the Tethered website or they have a Facebook event. Neil and I have both shared it. I'll probably end up sharing it on the New Hampshire Back 40 page here pretty soon, and I'll keep sharing it over the next couple weeks. Just have to sign up and just get a ticket for it. Ticket's free. It just gives Tethered a head count because they're providing lunch for everybody. So that's just another thing they're adding on to promote this event. They're going to have a bunch of their gear there to try out, or hopefully I'm trying to spread the word to other mobile hunters, saddle hunters out there, get more people down there just to hang out, see other people's gear, see their setups, talk hunting.
Free food.
Free food. We talked hunting for 3 hours here today, and it flew by like nothing. And hopefully we get a bunch of people and get to do it again here in a couple of weeks over at Morris's. So, Neil and I are both going to be there with our gear. Maybe we'll convince Adam to come down if he's not busy.
A bunch of other good people down there, huh? Good hunters.
I mean, everyone's just awesome. I mean,
Yep.
it's like
Pat-
if you want to just go
Pat
hang out.
Burns that Neil mentioned earlier, picking
Yeah.
up giant sheds. I've already been in his ear, like, hey, bud,
Bring the sheds.
It is probably going to be
Pat Burns,
like,
bring the sheds.
bring the sheds.
it is
Yes.
probably going to
Something to
be
look
like
at.
no joke, no lie. There's no expos this year, right? Like they've all been shut down. COVID
Yeah.
has fucking sucked, right? So it's like this is going to be the biggest event probably in New England. If you want a chance just to hang out with hunters and to have a good time, I mean, I hope I'm wrong and hope there's something else. It's like that comes up, but I don't know of another event probably that we're gonna have. It's like as an opportunity to get people together, to have fun, share stories. It's like to share, experiences, to share knowledge. So it's just like I hope the turnout is awesome. It's because it's just going to be a lot of fun at an awesome shop, with more sporting goods and with awesome people, that are there. I mean, even whether somebody's an expert, whether somebody's a novice, just everyone hanging out and just sharing that information, asking questions is going to be awesome. So we hope to see, everyone there. It's going to be great.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think we're good. Kevin, Adam, Neil, Brandon. Woo! Woo!
You're like a bad deck of cards that loves to lose. You don't listen to me, and I don't want you to, 'cause we sure have fun throwing my money away. You bet high, I bet low. You're all in and I'm all broke. Another paycheck down the drain. Yeah, baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning I'll know better, 'cause you're so bad for me. Just like a sip of wine leaves me to drink. You're my gateway drug. I'm starting to think it's gonna take much more than just 12 steps. So call Betty Ford, call Dr. Drew, save me a bed, 'cause in a month or two I wanna quit you, girl, just not yet. Yeah, baby, when we're together, you're the only drug I need. But in the morning I'll know better, 'cause you're so bad for me. Barreling down the road past these city lights, you got your hands on the wheel, a look in your eye. I ask myself, is it time to slow down? But the night's still young, we're full of gas, credit cards in my pocket with some limit left, and we got friends in the next town. Yeah, baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning I'll know better, 'cause you're so bad for me. Yeah, oh baby, when we're together, it's like Vegas times 3. But in the morning I'll know better, 'cause you're so bad for me. Oh, 'cause you're so bad for me. 'Cause you're so bad for me.